I sort of look at some accounts sometimes, but really just not on them generally. On X, of course, Twitter, although a lot less active than I used to be. And I don't know, and I've asked people this before, is it just me, that sort of not as interested in social media as I used to be, or is it everybody? I know everyone will have your own different view. And obviously talk radio, probably, if you look at it, the first kind of broad-based social media there was, ever, if you think about it. The idea of calling in, I remember once Bladen Zamande, the Minister of Higher Education, speaking at a funeral service, in fact, for Xolani Gwala. It was a memorial service, and he was pointing out how, when he grew up, when many people grew up, if you wanted to be part of a radio station, you sent a postcard. And now things are so different, aren't they? It's sort of quite a big change in society to go from sending a postcard and maybe having it read out once a week to actually just being able to call in every day, as some people do. Lots going on in local government today at the moment. So in eThekwini, we're still hoping for some kind of resolution to that big SAMWU strike. National SAMWU leadership, so the South African Municipal Workers Union, they said they were going to have a big meeting with SAMWU's eThekwini leadership after all the violence that we've seen there. And remember the KwaZulu-Natal Premier Namusa Dube saying earlier this week that the violence was sheer criminality and tantamount to treason. So I don't know, as I talk to you now, if that strike's going to be called off or not. I mean, I think everybody is hoping that it will be. Mxolisi Kaunda, the mayor in eThekwini, he's been seen on video telling striking workers that, look, you can't do this. You can't claim you're a progressive when you're switching off people's electricity. Now, I don't agree with the mayor on many things, but I think is a very strong argument. I mean, how can he say that that's progressive? Let's see what happens. We'll speak to the eThekwini SAMWU leadership in about 40 minutes from now and find out what the situation is. In Joburg, lots of areas have been battling with water. The Aikenhof pump station, that was off. You heard Isaac Mangena from City Power in Joburg about that yesterday. It came back, about 50% of it came back yesterday, 100% pumping overnight. But it takes a very long time to get the reservoir levels back. So you may still have no water this morning. I had no water for most of the day yesterday. Seemed to be coming back a little this morning, but when I wake up, no one's used water for a while, so it may well be different a little later today. We'll find out. And then in Ekurhuleni, the ANC there is saying that the sort of collaborative government it has with the EFF is not working for the people of Ekurhuleni. And remember last week, and Madupi was talking about it in his bulletin last week, we saw that violence in the Joburg Council between the EFF and the ANC. But the ANC still refusing to say what it will do around Sibuyile Ngudwana, who's the AIC's, the African Independence Movement's mayor in Ekurhuleni, whether they'll continue to vote with the EFF to retain him or not. So we still don't know what exactly is going to happen there. There was a peculiar political story yesterday, something I don't think I've seen something like this before. Maybe you have. And it's around an EFF MP, Naledi Cherwa. I don't think we've had her on the show yet. At some stage, maybe we will. And what happened was, a couple of weeks ago during the budget vote session, the EFF leader, Julius Malema, said some of his caucus, some of his MPs had not been in the National Assembly for it, and they had to be there, so he was going to demand explanations. So yesterday, Naledi Cherwa issued on X, on Twitter, a public apology, a sort of statement explaining why she wasn't there. And she said it was because her 4-month-old baby was ill and she felt she had to be with the baby, had to be with her baby. And who wouldn't? I mean, if your 4-month-old baby is ill, don't you immediately want to be with your child? She also said that as sort of punishment, she will now buy 2 EFF gazebos. I think they're not that cheap, but anyway, it's a sort of financial punishment, and I presume give those to the party. And it was just an interesting story about the difficulties that people face. If your child is ill, you want to be with your child. And it's a sort of human kind of thing happening behind the politician. I don't know if you have a view on what that sort of tells us about our society or not. The Gauteng budget yesterday, Jacob Momabolo releasing that. Most of the money, of course, going on health and education, as it always does in the provinces. The Gauteng Health Department already saying, yes, they've got an increase, but it's not going to be enough. And I think that's probably just fair. I think that's the situation for all budgets at the moment. Gauteng also preparing to pay 30% of the cost of the e-toll highways. And I've explained before how I see this, that, it looks like the people of Gauteng have to pay for highways they never wanted. People outside the province will say, well, why should we pay for it? They're not in our province. So, that argument goes in lots of different directions. But we'll ask Jacob Momabolo in about an hour from now, the Finance MEC in Gauteng, what's going to happen. 2.3 billion rands going to community safety, and I think going to the crime prevention detention wardens there. Some people call them the Amapanyaza, and we'll sort of see how that plays out. Gwede Mantashe, the Minister of Mineral Resources and Energy, he gave a big speech at the African Energy Indaba yesterday. African Energy Summit, I think it's called, actually. He said people who oppose gas exploration are anti-development. There's been a big argument around this. Also said that they'll reduce the emissions that coal puts out so we can use coal for longer. I don't think that means more coal-fired power stations after Medupi and Kusile. I think they will, from what I can see, be the last. He also said that we should be allowed to use our own uranium, and said there's a sort of partner, he described in the US, that doesn't want us to do that. And what happens is, and this goes back many years, as I understand, what countries like the US do is they say, we will provide you with the fuel, you give us for your reactors, if you want to use a nuclear reactor, we'll do an agreement with you, we'll look after it, etc. You give us what comes out of your reactor. Why do they say that? Because what comes out of the reactor can be used for something else. What is the something else, you ask? I'll give you a hint. It's quite explosive. It's a bomb. And so they sort of look after that. That's the deal. I think what Mantashe was saying, can we use our own fuel to generate electricity? This is something that other countries have dealt with as well. I spoke to you yesterday about Nkosinathi Nhleko, former police minister. He's resigned from the ANC. Remember, he said that his record of public service was sort of impeachable. I don't know if everyone sees it like that. Becky Mtolo, who is the provincial secretary for the ANC in KwaZulu-Natal, said yesterday, well, good riddance was his response to that. And I think in a way that is kind of Becky Mtolo's response whenever someone resigns from the ANC, which has a strong view on things. I met him once. Very, very warm man, I must just say. Very warm. And then Eddie Webster, Professor Eddie Webster, who really, I think, created the study of industrial sociology in South Africa, a legend in those fields, and someone who did very many things in our union movement, studied it, and I think was really, you could say, involved in it. I mean, as a sort of man who, at a stage in life when many people were thinking of retiring in his 60s, he actually went and created a whole sort of labor sociology unit for COSATU and was very involved, was arrested in the 1970s for things that he said about releasing Nelson Mandela, etc. Anyway, he passed away yesterday. I think I met Professor Webster just once. But you could tell you're sort of talking to someone who is a sort of giant in our society. So very sad to hear that he had passed away, but I think he leaves a very, very strong legacy in our society. You know how to get in touch, 086 000 2032. First social media there is, Talk Radio. USMS 41391. You tweet us FM Radio and at Stephen Grootes. Send your WhatsApp voice notes to 0614 104 107. Good morning, 17 after 6.
And we would buy 500 cars and we would buy 500 more. So sell your car for the best price and we won't think about it twice. We buy cars, we buy cars. Da-da-dun-da-dun-da-dun-da-dun-da-da-da. We buy cars, we buy cars. Da-da-dun-da-dun-da-dun-da-dun-da-da.
We Buy Cars, the easiest way to sell your car by far.
Two champions will collide as EFC returns live this Thursday. Watch the first title defense of flyweight sensation Gift the Day Walker against the current bantamweight title holder, the legendary Nkazimulu King Shaka Zulu.
All hail King Shaka,
who aims to join teammate Dricus du Plessis and once more being a two-division champion of Africa. EFC 111 live this Thursday. Watch it on SABC Sport Channel on DTT Channel 4 from 7 p.m. Brought to you by SABC Sport.
The Daily News Diary on SAFM.
Medupi Khalamela, good morning.
A very good morning, Stephen. How are you?
Yeah, I'm well, thanks. How are you? What's coming up today?
No complaints. You've pretty much run through all of what we're going to be covering here in the newsroom. But as we heard in the news, the 5 of the 7 suspects linked to the murder of AKA and Tibbs, they're expected to make their second appearance today, seeking bail in the Durban Magistrates Court. There's also the energy Indaba that was opened yesterday by Minister Mantashe. We'll be looking at solutions to tackling energy poverty and the increased generation of renewable energy. We'll also be keeping a close eye on that. There's also the VBS looting and corruption case. 3 suspects, including some senior officials of the Giyani municipality, expected to appear in the Specialized Commercial Crimes Court in Limpopo today. with regards to the VBS looting. And internationally, of course, the UN Security Council will convene a behind the closed doors later today on the deteriorating situation in Haiti.
Yeah, that Haiti situation is getting very much out of hand. Gangs running a large part of the territory of that country. Madubi Makhalemele, thank you. We'll be listening on the radio 20 minutes after 6.
First in the morning, SAFM Sunrise with Stephen Grootes.
Let's have a look at your weather around the country this morning. Tshwane, fine in the morning, otherwise partly cloudy. Isolated showers, thunder showers in the afternoon, 20 and 34. Johannesburg, fine in the morning, otherwise partly cloudy. Isolated showers, thunder showers later, 18 and 32. Vereeniging, fine in the morning, otherwise cloudy. Isolated showers, thunder showers later, 19 and 33. Bombela, partly cloudy. Isolated evening showers and thunder showers, 21 and 29. Polokwane, fine, becoming partly cloudy from the afternoon, 21 and 34. Mahikeng, fine, 16 and 36. Vryburg, fine, 12 and 36. Mangaung, fine, 9 and 31. Kimberley, fine, 11 and 32. Uppington, fine, 10 and 31. Cape Town, fine, a light and variable wind in the morning, otherwise a moderate southerly, 15 and 25. George, partly cloudy in the morning, otherwise fine, a light and variable wind, 12 and 22. Gqeberha, fine, a light southwesterly wind, 17 and 25. East London, fine, a moderate southwesterly, 17 and 27. eThekwini, partly cloudy, isolated showers and rain, a light southwesterly wind, 21 and 26. Richards Bay, partly cloudy, isolated showers, thunder showers, a moderate to fresh southerly, 23 and 28. And Pietermaritzburg, morning fog, otherwise partly cloudy, isolated showers and thunder showers, 19 and 23.
Fly better to your next holiday. Book your flights with Emirates to a holiday in Dubai, London, Istanbul or Paris. Look forward to delicious regionally inspired cuisine, enjoy free-flowing premium drinks, and relax to your favorite movies on the way. Because it's not just about the destination, it's how you get there. This year, fly Emirates. Fly better.
The Eagles understand how crucial maximum points are as they rapidly want to climb up the ladder of the Premier League.
Nye whips in once more. Richards at the back post! Chris Richards has broken the deadlock at Selhurst Park!
But the Hatters know that they need something magical to escape from danger.
Forward run from Chong, deflection of Bene's header, and the Hatters lead! What a noise from the away end, the Kop end is stuck!
Experience the Premier League encounter between Crystal Palace FC and Luton Town FC on Saturday 9 March at 4 p.m. live on S3. Also available on SABC Plus and SABCSport.com. Hashtag we love it here. Brought to you by SABC Sport. For the love of the game.
Worldview Update, bringing you closer to international news.
22 minutes after 6, good morning. In China, the country's parliament, the National People's Congress, is in session this week with a promise by the Premier, Li Qiang, that his government will aim for 5% economic growth this year. That's while the Chinese economy appears to be suffering from deflation and maybe slowing down. Li also said that China will be firm in advancing the cause of China reunification, presumably a reference to Taiwan. Beijing is also going to increase its defense spending by over 7% this year. Professor David Monyai is the director for the Center for Africa-China Studies at the University of Johannesburg. Professor Monyai, good morning.
Good morning to you.
We've seen Western media reporting quite extensively on some of the economic problems China now faces. There's deflation in some parts of the economy. There is some evidence it's slowing down. Is 5% economic growth still achievable in China?
I think China always put in a quite ambitious economic growth target. And in most instances, they do meet their target. So it all depends with how the economy responds, particularly in the post-COVID. I think there has been massive movement of people with the end of year, New Year celebration, given the fact that this is the dragon year. There's massive movement of people. Tourism is peaking a little bit. Still, they have quite a number of challenges in the property market and other areas. However, they're very ambitious, as always, and at times they do meet the targets. So, but this year we wait and see.
The statement around China and reunification, how do you assess that? In the past, China has often said it wants peaceful reunification. This is all about Taiwan. Now Li just said reunification. Is that significant?
Oh, indeed. I think they have strategized new tactics of winning over Taiwan without necessarily going with what the West is expecting, a massive war of nature, winning over Taiwanese people, and find a better way of uniting. It might take time, but all depends with how the Western world intervenes. If there's a lot of weapons being deployed by the United States into Taiwan and these careless movements of politicians visiting the place, it heightens tensions, and accidental wars normally do take place in the past and in the future. But I think the leadership is trying to find a unique way, given the lessons of other conflicts all over the world. I don't think the Chinese really want to go killing fellow Chinese in Taiwan.
This is a big moment for China in a way. You've got this session and the sort of what's called the two sessions, the two big kind of legislative bodies meet sort of in the same week, as I understand it. We can see the Western powers are consumed by the conflict in Ukraine and to an extent the situation in Gaza. I wondered if this was a moment for China to become more assertive. We've seen that sort of in the Middle East. Obviously, if it played a big role in being seen to resolve these conflicts, Ukraine and Gaza, that would enhance its power. Is it really interested in getting involved? I mean, in Gaza, I don't see much evidence that it's playing a big role at all at this stage.
Yeah, not at all, given the fact that the United States is directly involved in Gaza conflict in terms of weapons, moral support. I don't think that China would want to go head to head with the United States right there. They try to influence quite close to Israeli as also closer to the Palestinian. I think what they did with Saudi Arabia and Iran, it's a new model that they're trying to bring on board, trying to bring peace through negotiation. But with us on the African continent, we expect them to do the same when it comes to Algeria, Morocco, the crisis of Western Sahara. And I think they have influence in those countries, whether it's Sudan. I think there is a need to push the Chinese to play a constructive role and bring peace.
Professor David Muniai, thank you. Director at the Centre for Africa-China Studies at the University of Johannesburg. 27 minutes after 6.
This is SAFM Sport with Zai Khan.
Zai, good morning.
Good morning.
Kaiser Chiefs. What? It says here they won.
Can you believe that scoreline? And thanks to a teenage star, Wandile Duba, scoring the only goal, 1-0 the victory over Golden Arrows. And the win snapped Amakozi's 4-match winless run across all competition ahead of Saturday's Soweto Derby clash, which will be against Orlando Pirates. The Glamour Boys remain 6th on the league standings, but are now level on points with 5th place Orlando Pirates. Now, Arrows, on the other hand, extend their losing run to 11 matches across all competitions. They also slipped down to 11th spot on the league standings. But here's the match-winning coach, Kevin Johnson.
What a game of football. I thought we played very well in the first half, and we get a goal from a 19-year-old that has been knocking on the door for a while now. We have a good half. First half, I thought we could have we had another chance or two. And then we come out in the second half. We still dominate, but we allow Golden Arrows to get back in the game somewhere along the line, and they threaten us.
Let's go to the other match where AmaZulu, they drew their latest DStv Premiership fixture 1-1 against Morocco Swallows, and that took place at the King Zwelithini Stadium. Elsewhere, Stellenbosch FC clinched a 1-0 Premiership victory against Cape Town City. We got Bayern Munich as well. They scored a comprehensive 3-0. It was a 3-1 victory. That's the aggregate over Lazio at the Allianz Arena to overturn a 1-0 deficit from the first leg and reached the Champions League quarterfinals. In the meantime, the Manchester City striker Erling Haaland has played down rumours linking him with a move to Real Madrid, insisting he's very happy at the club. He has currently 79 goals scored for Manchester City in all competitions since joining in 2022. Now, for the first time, he's also been said that Lionel Messi is the greatest of all time and justified that he surpassed him in the Ballon d'Or and FIFA's The Best Awards. Here's Haaland.
I don't know. Good question. Yeah, it's true. True, he won it, and he won the World Cup. So I don't know what to say. He is the best that's ever played, I think. So yeah, I don't know.
And finally, cricket. Former Proteas fast bowler Shabnam Ismail entered the record books. She bowled the fastest ball ever recorded in women's cricket history. Playing for the Mumbai Indians in the Women's Premier League in India, Ismail recorded delivery of her third over at an impressive 132.1 kilometres an hour in a clash against the Delhi Capitals. Now, she is widely regarded as one of the fastest bowlers in the world, but this is the first time the 130 kilometre an hour mark has been breached in the women's game. More sport for you on Sunrise at the top of the hour. I'm Zai Khan.
Zai, thanks very much indeed. In the next half hour, we'll speak to Samuel and eThekwini with SFM leading the conversation. No load shedding now. Stage 2 later, 6:30.
A very good morning with the news headlines. Kemudupi Makhalemele. 5 of the 7 suspects linked to the murder of rapper Keenan aka Forbes are expected to make their second appearance for bail verification in the Durban Magistrates Court. The Mangaung Metro in the Free State says it is hard at work trying to find a solution that will best address the tensions in Loria Park in Bloemfontein. And the UN Security Council will convene behind the closed doors later today on the deteriorating situation in Haiti. And those are your headlines. A full news update at 7.
SAFM. Guiding you through the rush hour traffic.
Update on the vehicle fire, the tanker fire incident between Ashburton and Pietermaritzburg's Market Street exit. It was burning earlier this morning. Got under control pretty quickly, but teams are still on the scene of that. So if you're on the N3, having left Durban, heading up towards Pietermaritzburg, 2 left lanes are closed. So there will be an impact in terms of delays in that area. Also, just staying in case there in a crash at Mobetti Heights on the Higginson Highway. Watch for some delays coming out of Chatsworth towards the N2 highway this morning. Pretoria looking generally fairly standard. Vanderbilt Pass is busy. Mopani Highway down to Thea Martin's looking quite slow as well. Looks like we've still got some traffic lights out coming out of Rampark Ridge on Easterhout out around Rabi. It's very slow leaving Rampark Ridge on your way towards Randburg again this morning. Some lights out on Hendrik Potgieter near the Hill Fox Centre. So that's quite slow. Hendrik Potgieter coming in from Strublin's Valley side. Cape Town, a crash on the N1 into town at the Durban Road exit in Belleville. That's causing a delay that stretches all the way back to Okavango Road already. Once you get past that, you stay in traffic to Sable Road. The N2 absolutely full and busy this morning from Spine Road at Khayelitsha all the way through to the Mowbray Main Road. And motorists that are driving through the Eastern Cape Cathcart area, we've had a few days of relative calm, certainly across the weekend and Monday and Tuesday, but last night some more vehicles were being stoned in ongoing sort of unrest in the Cathcart area. So just pay attention, be vigilant if you're having to go through that N6 route in that part of the Eastern Cape. Rob Byrne, SAFM Traffic.
The business update on SAFM.
Ray Machlaka, good morning.
Good morning. Hi there.
Asian markets, US markets, how are they looking?
Well, both markets are mostly up. The investor focus is on the U.S. economy. U.S. Central Bank Chair Jerome Powell will begin his 2-day testimony from today before lawmakers about interest rates. The testimony might give clues about when interest rates might be cut in the U.S. However, investors are hopeful about a cut from June before the US market opens later today. The US futures market is up. Nasdaq, Dow Jones, and S&P futures are each up 0.2%. In Asian markets, Hong Kong's Hang Seng is up 2.3%. China's Shanghai Composite is up 0.1%, and Japan's Nikkei is down 0.2%. And in the currency market, there is some strength in the dollar to the rand. The local currency is 18.95.
And then we avoid a recession, but 0.1% growth. Such a bleak outlook.
Yeah, during the last 3 months of 2023, South Africa's economy grew by a paltry 0.1%. This means that the economy avoided a recession or a situation in which there would be no economic growth for 2 consecutive quarters. For 2023 as a whole, the economy grew by 0.6%, down from 1.9% in 2022. It is even surprising that the economy grew in 2023 because economic conditions were tough. There were unprecedented levels of Eskom blackouts. The logistics crisis in the hands of Transnet worsened, and consumer spending was in the doldrums because of high inflation and interest rates. Most economists are forecasting economic growth of 0.7% for this year, which is not enough to create jobs or reduce poverty and inequality levels.
And then ShopRite winning more market share, and you sort of see more ShopRite motorcycles than anything else.
Yeah, ShopRite is taking market share away from Pick n Pay and Woolworths. ShopRite grew its sales by 13% to reach 121 billion rand during the 6 months ending December last year. ShopRite, which also owns Checkers, has now grown its market share in the retail industry for almost 5 years, and this makes ShopRite the largest retailer in South Africa. ShopRite is now even using artificial intelligence tools to price goods based on the demand for goods by consumers.
Ray McClark, thank you. Ray, of course, back in an hour more business news through the day here on SAFM, 24 minutes to 7.
Africa Update on SAFM Sunrise, a continental overview of current African affairs.
Russ Advocate Sipho Mantula, good morning. There you are, Sipho. Sorry, my mistake. Good morning. How are you doing?
Refreshing morning and Jumbo Africa to the listeners.
The Palestinian President Mahmoud Abbas, he's been holding talks with the President of Guinea-Bissau on developments in Gaza.
Stephen, that is quite interesting for the President of Guinea, Umaro Sissoco Embalo, engaging with Mahmoud Abbas, just to look at the challenges, but also to thank him for his support, saying that he has been supportive in the international forums in support of the people of Palestine, stressing eagerness to work with them on their historical bilaterals. Very important that Embalo also met with the Israeli President Isaac Herzog over this weekend also, but others are saying he's the first African leader to visit both countries since the war has erupted last year, October.
And then in Somalia, they've joined the East African community.
They are becoming the 8th member of the East African community. Even for you to be a member, you have to ratify the Treaty of Accession with the East African community. Remember that Somalia has joined it because even there have been challenges actually in the Horn of Africa. But for them to join, now they are part of what we call Tanzania, Kenya, Uganda, a grouping, as well as the South Sudan and Rwanda and Burundi. For them also is to strengthen their economic growth from Mogadishu now to gain more strength. So their ratification was confirmed in Arusha in Tanzania over this weekend by the Secretary General of East Africa Community, Dr. Peter Mutuki.
And then the government of Germany reiterates its apology for killing 19 traditional leaders in Tanzania in 1900.
Stephen, it was 124th anniversary brutal killing of 19 traditional leaders in the Mushi district in Kilimanjaro region, that is in Arusha, Tanzania again. Now, the Germans even had to do this apology as part of what we can say, either reparation, what they did in Namibia, but they also thanked President Samia Suluhu who has formed a special committee to look at these issues of also the return of traditional belongings and assets of those traditional leaders that was taken away from Tanzania in Arusha to Germany. So Germany coming very close, even apologizing during their colonial rule for what they have done 100 years ago. That was during this month also, even around March 1900.
And then in Ghana, there's a bill there against gay and lesbian people. I mean, we've seen this in Uganda. And it's now reached, it hasn't yet gone to the desk of the president.
Stephen, it has not reached in the desk of president, only that the media and many people started to hear this when he was making a comment, President Nana Akufo-Addo, saying that it will not also, this signing of the bill, whether he sign it or not, Ghana will always respect human rights principles. He has also been advised by his Minister of Finance also to say desist from signing it because there are challenges. There is a legal there is an appeal. There's a court that has been mounted at the even Supreme Court, but also there is this issue of advocacy and funding that might also affect Ghana at the international level. So President Nana Akufo saying that he has not yet received the bill, despite that it has been passed by the Ghanaian Parliament.
And then in our archives, an important day, 6th of March, 1957.
Still sticking with Ghana, Stephen, it was on this day, 1957, when Ghana was liberated from their colonial master, Britain. Ghana became also the member of the Commonwealth, and it was under the leadership of President Kwame Nkrumah, the late, who transformed Ghana into a republic, a person who went to and fro and became a founding member of the Organization of African Unity, now the African Union. Asante Sana SGS was leading the conversation, SAFM, observing the Human Rights Month.
Rights Advocate Sipho Mantula, thank you very much indeed. Back, of course, tomorrow, more news from our continent through the day here on SAFM. 20 minutes to 7.
Call us on 086 000 2032.
That's the number. We've got the SAMWU strike in eThekwini. We've got the situation in Ekurhuleni. We still don't know if the ANC will work with the EFF there and keep Sibuyiso Godwana from the AIC in power. We had Naledi Chirua's apology. She needed to be with her ill child, just 4 months old, a baby, so a very difficult situation for her. Other conversations as well about energy, memories of Professor Eddie Webster too, who passed away. CJ on the line from Randburg. Hi, what's happened in Randburg, CJ?
I'm actually on the edge of Randburg in Inadan AH Agricultural Holding. We have had no water in our street for 26 days. I've reported it on numerous events. First they said no, there's no problem. Then my councillor says go and see Joburg Water. I actually get there, they say we're closed Friday afternoon, but eventually they see me. They say somebody will come. Hoppers 3, they arrive. Hoppers 5, they say the pressure's low. We'll go to the valve up the road. They work there. Eventually I get them. They said, no, I couldn't get back to them. They're working on it. Saturday I got them. They said, oh, there's a blockage. We've got 2 machines. We'll send one Saturday or Sunday. Nothing happened. Monday I spoke to them. They said, no, it's something else. We're just, our trucks are driving around Chartwell looking. I still have no water. I have nothing. Please, is there any way you can help me?
CJ, does this affect your neighbours as well?
Sorry?
Does it affect your neighbours as well?
Yeah, I've discovered most people have boreholes.
Yeah.
But when we had no electricity, the house next door also couldn't get. I wonder if the blockage isn't between the valve they were looking in our place, because up at the corner, half a kilometre away, is a first-time homeowners gated community. They've got water. So what is going on?
That's very strange. All right, CJ, let's see what we can do. I can't make any promises, you know I never do. I'm sorry to hear that you're going through that kind of problem. Anyone come across a similar situation to CJ's where they've been without water for that long? I mean, 26 days is a very long time. And in Joburg as well, I mean, very, very difficult. Voice notes coming through this morning on 0614 104 107.
Morning, Steve. Morning, Mzansi. Well, depressed as I am, look, Stephen, can somebody tell us why is the Israeli army attacking the West Bank killing women and children. Just today, a 10-year-old boy was shot in the head inside his father's car. It's live on international networks. Why such brutality? And they're using American weapons, which is highly compromised and has lost its credibility, morality, and ethics to call for any peace in that part of the country. I'm so frustrated. Major from Kwatema.
Major, I can hear the frustration in your voice. Yeah, look, I mean, the situation there has just got so terrible. And you know, I know our Minister of International Relations, Dr. Naledi Pandor, calling for more peace talks yesterday, basically calling for peace, as I think most people are. Such a difficult situation. I don't know how it gets resolved. I know our government has tried to play a constructive role where it can. And I can't justify the killing of, women and children in that way. I really can't. I think it's amazing that it's been going on for so long, and it's such a difficult situation. And yet it seems that, there's just very, very little anyone can do about it. In Ntlantla and Tshwane, hi. Also on water in Ntlantla, what are you seeing?
Good morning. So my daughter goes to Stadio in Randburg, and she recently moved into an apartment there. She just sent me a message around 1 a.m. yesterday asking to come back home. She hasn't had water.
Sure.
So, yeah. Must be a serious problem in the city of Johannesburg.
And do you know, so how long has she been without water? Because I know parts of Randburg, I live there, they've had big problems because the Aikenhof pumping station was off. How long has she been without water for in Ntlantla?
She moved in there on Sunday, full time. So yesterday she has to go buy water just to bath and just to get something to cook with it. And then this morning she said, no, Mama, I want to come back home.
Shame. And Ntlantla, and sort of starting out, away from home, and this is the problem you have to deal with.
Yep. This is our government.
And Ntlantla on the line from Tshwane. Okay, thank you. Very difficult situations developing there. Your view on the 086 000 2032. 6:45.
SAFM. Prime time all day long.
And eThekwini, over 1,000 cases of pink eye, its technical name is conjunctivitis, have now been reported. It's a virus that makes your eyes go bloodshot, so the whites of your eyes turn red. Your eyes are very itchy. If you've got a young child with red eyes and they're rubbing their eyes, they've probably got conjunctivitis. Very contagious. If you share a pillow with someone, if you share cosmetics, if your child goes for a sleepover or something, it can kind of move quite quickly. Dr. Sandile Chabalala is the head of department for KwaZulu-Natal Health. Dr. Chabalala, good morning.
Good morning, Stephen, and good morning to your listeners.
This seems to be quite a big outbreak, over 1,000 cases. Do we know where it started?
We were not certain where it started, Stephen. We are just worried that it is spreading so quickly. You are saying 1,000. We already know of more than 1,200 cases in eThekwini. We've got a few that we now have experienced in Uku district, and we are worried. And we do not know also whether the cases in Uku and the cases in eThekwini are related in terms of did they spread from one person in eThekwini or people in eThekwini to people in Uku, or it started somewhere in Uku as well. So we're worried about the fact that we are having it, and we're worried it may spread to other districts. But we're monitoring. So far, we know it in these two districts.
Okay, so it moves from one to the other. How serious is it? It makes your eyes red. It makes them very itchy. Are there other symptoms we need to worry about?
Remember, there are types of conjunctivitis. Either they can be viral or bacterial. Those are the contagious types. Then there can be the allergic type of conjunctivitis where you get an irritant, a chemical or a foreign body irritating. Some people, it's seasonal. For instance, people with psoriasis, you would expect, or allergic skin disease, other allergies, it can come with that. But for people who are having conjunctivitis, that is bacterial and viral, we get to be worried more because the spread is, as I sneeze, as I cough, as I talk to you, it can then spread to you. And that is the reason we are saying people should be careful of conglomerating in big numbers, just like we would say in terms of COVID. Not that we are saying it spreads as you talk to people, but we need to be careful. And the hand to eye is the most important one. Now, it's a general thing that when your eye is irritated, you are going to rub it, and as soon as you have rubbed it and somebody comes, you shake the hand, it's gone. So that is important for us to pass to the community. And that is why we would say maybe people should try to avoid being in big numbers. Or another important thing is that the hands must be washed very regularly. The sanitizing of the hands, we think it does help because it does kill viruses, it does kill bacteria as well. So those are the issues. I think the other thing to mention, Stephen, is that you may find that you leave your place having already been infected. 2 days down the line, you see symptoms. So that you've been in a Segwini without it, and suddenly you are in Amachuba district, I'm going to use our own province, and you have symptoms, you may have picked it up, and therefore it has spread with you. So those are issues that we're worried about. At the moment, as I said, it's only 2 districts that we know.
Dr. Chabalala, thank you very much indeed. Dr. Sandile Chabalala, head of the Department of Health in KwaZulu-Natal, confirming there are 1,200 cases of conjunctivitis in those 2 districts. In a moment, Samu and eThekwini on their big strike, 10 minutes to 7.
SAFM, guiding you through the rush hour traffic.
Very good morning. There is some queuing traffic now on the N3 going into Pietermaritzburg, just at Ashburton. 2 lanes are closed. It's an earlier tanker fire incident just around the Ashburton exit. So when we spoke earlier, there was 1 lane closed. That's now 2 lanes. So delays towards Pietermaritzburg, absolutely inevitable and unavoidable, really, if you're on your way through now. It's quite a heavy queue getting back towards Linfield Park, as you can imagine, with 2 lanes closed. Breakdown on the N2 South before Spaghetti Junction. So early queues coming through from Umgena and the M7 towards the Bel Air Road for motorists heading through towards the Bluff queuing again. Also Wakesley Road coming up through the M7 in towards the construction of Bel Air. Very heavy queues there as well. Joburg side this morning. Looks like got some traffic light issues still with us on Easterhout as you come out of Rampark Ridge towards Randburg. There are 2 areas of queuing pressure there. Bayers Nordier at the N1. Lights are down out of Rampark Ridge towards the M1 highway. That's very busy as well. Cape Town side, there's been a crash on the M7, Jakes Kerwell Drive, just before Turfall Road. So quite heavy leaving the Mitchell's Plain area up in towards Philippi. The N2 full of traffic from the airport through to Hospital Bend. Strand Road into Stickland. That's slow. It's impacting on Van Riebeeck Road as you come out of Kales River this morning, across the R300 and through that Stickland area. The R300 to get off at that Van Riebeeck Road, Strand Road exit is starting to queue up as well. And there's some pressure on Marine Drive, always a little bit different on a daily basis. This morning, Marine Drive queues to Loxton Road into the Woodbridge Island area. That's slow as you arrive in from the Sunset Beach side. Rob Byrne, SAFM Traffic.
The cost of living crisis is real. Here's what one OUTsurance client did about it.
I'm Amy. I'm 26 from Kenilworth. When I got my 2022 Ford EcoSport, the immediate thought was to phone OUTsurance, and I pay only 819 Rand per month. No insurers were able to beat or match the premium that I'm currently paying.
Want a car insurance premium that will blow your mind? SMS out to 30754 now for a quote and to find out about included benefits like panic assistance that sends the nearest medical or armed response unit to you wherever you may be 24/7. Here's Yusuf.
45 years old from Teigedal, Western Cape. I pay 700 Rand for my Polo 1.6 2021 model. If you haven't called OUTsurance yet, definitely get in touch.
Give it a go. SMS out to 30754 now. That's out to 30754. OUTsurance is a licensed insurer and FSP. T's, C's, and limits apply. Premiums are risk profile dependent and reviewed annually. Client comments do not constitute financial advice.
Mzansi's top spinners are back on the ground for a tire screeching battle.
Here we go. You ready for some fun?
Stay glued to SABC TV channels on 16 March 2024 for a breathtaking experience of Red Bull Shine Motor.
Precision driving at its very best out here. This is Africa. Welcome to a world of spinning.
Do not miss out on the heated spinning by the greats of the sport. Proudly brought to you by SABC Sport. For the love of the game.
Attention listeners, do you know a young visionary making a difference in South Africa? Sunday World is searching for unsung heroes, from community leaders to tech innovators who are looking for the young minds driving positive change. Nominate someone who's making waves in education, science, tourism or any field. Let's recognise and celebrate their contributions together. Nominate your unsung hero now, because every hero deserves their moment in the spotlight. Hashtag unsung heroes, hashtag nominate now, hashtag Sunday World, sundayworld.co.za/heroes-nomination-2024.
Stephen Grootes on SAFM.
7 minutes to 7. The national leadership of the SA Municipal Workers Union said yesterday they were going to hold a meeting with striking SAMWU members in eThekwini last night to try and find a way to resolve some of the problems caused by the massive strike there. At least 13 SAMWU members have been arrested by police in eThekwini. The KwaZulu-Natal Premier Nomutsa Dube-Ncube said this week the violence associated with the strike was pure criminality and tantamount to treason. eThekwini officials say some infrastructure has been damaged during the strike. Workers say they want their salaries to be benchmarked the same way as the workers in Joburg and in Ekurhuleni and Tshwane have their salaries benchmarked. But eThekwini says that the strike is in fact illegal. Sia Dladla is the regional chair of the South African Municipal Workers Union in eThekwini. Sia, good morning.
Morning.
Did that meeting go ahead with your national leadership last night? Is the strike still going on this morning?
Look, first and foremost, we did indicate it and stated that we do respect the court interdict that was issued to us by the court last week. And we did state that we do respect and honor that court interdict. So as a result of that, all our members do report to their workstation and offices, as well as to their depots.
So is the strike over?
I will also repeat, our members do report to their workstation and their offices, as well as to their depots. So they always report to their depots and to their workstation. So we do respect and honor the court interdict.
So when they do that, are they going to perform their duties? Are they going to do their work?
It is not within my jurisdiction to say whether when they are in their depots as well, they do have to perform their duties, because before you perform your duties, you are giving the tools of trade first. So in most cases, on the depots and their workstation, you'll find that some of the vehicles, they've been switched off. So I cannot dwell that much because I'm not an employer. I'm a representative of the workers.
Okay. You can put my suspicions to bed, Sia, by answering this question. Is the strike over? Yes or no?
Is the strike over? Yes.
Okay, thank you. That's all I needed. Thank you. So you expect people to go back to work today? You expect them to report to work as normal from today?
Again, let me repeat my statement. I did state that they always report to their workstation and to their depots.
Yes, but we know that striking workers have been using violence. We know that there have been problems there. So I'm trying to get to the point of...
That's your assumption if you're saying you know. I do not know because it's something that I haven't... I mean, I don't want to cast the aspersions to say there's something that I do know, whereas I'm not sure and I do not have the facts of that. We do not want to cast the aspersions to say this is what happened, whereas I know very well that I know nothing. There's nothing that I have received that I am sure that it's employees.
Okay, so violence happens literally in front of your eyes during a strike by SAMWU members and you know nothing. Is that what you're telling me?
If you're saying in front of my eyes, I will repeat again. You are casting the aspersion to say it's something that I know and that I saw. Employees, we had a general meeting. And on that general meeting, they went to submit their memorandum to the employer because it's not something that has been, started whether yesterday, because that memorandum and those issues have been transpired for quite some time.
Okay, see, there's a lot going on here. We know that there's been violence during the strike. There wasn't violence before the strike. There was violence during the strike. We know that police have actually arrested people who I presume are members of SAMWU for their role in violence during the strike. The Premier says that the violence is criminality and that the violence is because of the strike. Who else could it be if it's not members of SAMWU?
The biggest problem with regards to the statement that you are referring to is that probably is you as the media, you only receive one side of the story. Because I don't hear you asking me that you were told that first and foremost there are no memorandum or petition of the concern of our members as well.
Okay.
And which is not true.
Yes.
The information that you did receive, it's a misleading information because from the 21st of September 2023, we've submitted our memorandum to them. Now, again, the protocol, we must understand the protocol. We've submitted our memorandum to the administration of eThekwini municipality, together with a memorandum that we have submitted to Mayor of eThekwini municipality. So we cannot just jump the guns and go to the office of the premiers and say, this is our memorandum.
Sia, the issue is that the strike is illegal. The issue is that you say people will go to their workstations, but you won't say explicitly that they will actually do their work. Those can be two different things. And the issue is...
I'm not the employer. I'm not the employer. I cannot dictate terms as to what is going to happen.
That's a weasel answer, Sia. It's very simple. All you need to say is the strike is over. People are going to work today to do their work. That's all you need to say, and then we're done.
That's the second time you're asking me one question, which I responded to that question.
Okay.
It's the second time you're asking me, I responded to that question.
Okay, so people will be back at work and the situation will go back to normal in eThekwini today.
I responded to that question.
See,
I will repeat. I responded to you. You asked me, I stated exactly to say employees do report to their workstation and to their depots. And you asked me again to say, is the weather is over? So I responded to you to say, at the meantime, we respect the court interdict. And yes, employees do report to work. So what else that I can say? I responded all your questions.
Sia Dladla, we'll have to leave it there. Thank you. The regional chair of the South African Municipal Workers Union in eThekwini. You were there, SFM, leading the conversation just after 7 o'clock.
Independent and impartial. This is SAFM News.
The top stories this hour, aka murder suspects back in court today, and pink eye cases increase in KZN. A very good morning to you. 5 of the 7 suspects linked to the murder of rapper Keenan aka Forbes are expected to make their second appearance for bail verification in the Durban Magistrates Court. Aka and his friend Tebello Tibbs Mutswani were gunned down outside a Durban restaurant in February last year. The 5 face 10 charges, including murder, attempted murder, and the illegal possession of firearms and ammunition. Legal expert Abigail Ngobeni.
And when they say they are verifying, they're checking things such as the ability of the accused persons to stand trial. They are going to check, you'll remember in the Magudumana matter, it played a very pivotal role that she jumped a lot of border gate without using a passport, and then that showed that she was a flight risk. It's amongst many things why her bail was denied. So I think they'll be verifying such kind of things. They'll also be verifying the information that the accused persons provide. Issues such as previous convictions and pending cases as well play a very important role when they apply for a bail application.
Meanwhile, the Director of Public Prosecutions in Eswatini says they have not received the official extradition application from South Africa for Siyabonga and Malusi Ndimande, who are also accused of killing AKA and Tibbs. The brothers appeared at the Manzini Magistrates Court yesterday. They were arrested in one of the houses that they were renting in Mbabane 2 weeks ago. State Prosecutor Macebo Nxumalo told the court that they'll be furnished with the official application within 30 days.
Your Lordship, even today, Your Lordship, we haven't received that document, Your Lordship. Your Lordship, we have been in constant contact with our counterparts, the DPP's office in Maritzburg, in Durban, Your Lordship, and they have made a promise, Your Lordship, that those documents are being prepared and they will be submitted as soon as possible.
The legal representative of the Ndimande brothers, Sivasonke Ngwenya, says they want to be assured that the suspects will be safe after being extradited. The Mangaung Metro in the Free State says it is hard at work trying to find a solution that will best address the tensions in Loria Park in Bloemfontein. Residents and people who have invaded land are at loggerheads. Mangaung Mayor Gregory Ntatisi says people who are invaded there are those who have learned about the municipal land rezoned for a residential area. He says the Metro will continue to abide by the court order that instructs them not to remove residents who have already erected structures, but to stop further land grabs. Ntatisi says they need to strike a balance for the harmonious living of all the residents.
The situation that we are dealing with is not as easy as take, move, do as you wish. We need to take into consideration that we are dealing with people that are coming from a very difficult situation, whose shacks, wherever they come from, were in places where they are not supposed to be, on a waterlock, with these rains that we see, on Donga's situation. We are actually found ourselves as leaders to be making sure that we bring harmony and peace. That's what we are trying to do, and we'll do our best.
The KZN Health Department has warned eThekwini residents of a surge in the number of pink eye cases. In a statement, the department says that as of the weekend, the province had over 1,000 cases of pink eye. The overwhelming majority was in the eThekwini municipality. The department is urging residents to practice good personal hygiene, such as regular hand washing, and to avoid the sharing of face cloths, eye cosmetics, or even pillows. And the UN Security Council will convene behind closed doors later today on the deteriorating situation in Haiti. The latest intensification of crippling gang violence in the Caribbean country's capital, Port-au-Prince, comes after a gang leader's effort to overthrow the current prime minister, who was abroad at the time. Gangs tried to overrun the international airport with 2 mass escapes from the country's 2 biggest prisons. Spokesperson Stefan Dujarric says Secretary General Antonio Guterres is deeply concerned about the rapidly deteriorating security situation in Haiti and its impacts on civilians.
He calls for an urgent action, particularly in providing financial support for the multinational security support mission, which, as a reminder, is not a UN peacekeeping force. This force will need to address the pressing security requirements of the Haitian people and prevent the country from plunging into further chaos. He also calls on the government of Haiti and other political actors to swiftly agree to the necessary steps to advance the political process towards the restoration of democratic institutions through the holding of elections.
The top story this hour, 5 of the 7 suspects linked to the murder of rapper Keenan aka Forbes are expected to make their second appearance for bail verification in the Durban Magistrates Court. For SAFM News, Kemudupi Makhalemeli.
A very good morning to you in your SFM sports headlines. Soccer, Kaizer Chiefs now hit with an injury scare ahead of the Orlando Pirates clash. And in tennis, the two-time Grand Slam champion Simona Halep has been cleared for an immediate return to tennis by sport's highest court, cutting her ban for doping on appeal. All this and more just before 7:30.
SAFM, guiding you through the rush hour traffic.
Just a reminder of the heavy backlog heading into Pietermaritzburg from Ashburton side this morning. It's the tanker fire. The tanker's well out, but there are 2 lanes closed, so delays inevitable as you line up to get through that obstruction. Just down into Durban, the M7 very heavily congested again from Queensborough down to Bel Air Road, Wakesley Road coming up through the M7 onto Bel Air into the roadworks up towards Chief Abelatuli. Very heavy backlogs there as well. All fairly busy on the N1 coming from Pretoria down to Joburg. Fairly standard though for this time of morning. Traffic queuing between Brockfontein and the New Road exit. A breakdown after Winnie Mandela on the N1 North. Left lane is closed. That's pushing traffic back to Bayers Nordia. So Randburg through the four ways. A heavy one again this morning. And Cape Town, if you're driving out of town towards Paarl, there's been a crash at Justenburg. That's causing quite a backlog back towards Okavango Road. And a crash on the M7 Jakes Curvell Drive, leaving Mitchell's Plain. The collision before Turfall Road. Traffic very heavy back to sort of Samora Michelle territory. Rob Byrne, SAFM Traffic.
SAFM Sunrise. A vivid start to your day.
9 after 7, good morning. You with SAFM Sunrise. I'm Stephen Grootes. Nice to have you along with us this morning. Lots going on. You heard that conversation with the South African Municipal Workers Union in eThekwini. We'll switch focus to Gauteng. Hear from the Gauteng Finance MEC, Jacob Mamabolo, about the budget there and where the money is going and is there enough of it. I suppose everyone will say there's not enough of it. Focus on our economy as well in this half hour. Just escaping a recession. That was the news from Stats SA yesterday. But really, we have so many economic problems at the moment. So we'll have a look at that as well. Don't forget your mediated conversation. We'll talk a bit about social media and what is happening with the sort of companies like Google, the tech companies that make money out of the news, which is produced and paid for by other organisations. Which other organisations do you mean? The South African Broadcasting Corporation is one of them. All of that to come 10 after 7.
Introducing a collection of Audi Black and Urban Special Edition models crafted for the bold and curated for the progressive. From the sporty Audi S3 and elegant A4 to the distinctive Q2 and Q3, each vehicle has been created to be an extension of your identity. Style, design, comfort, and technology is yours to own with a guaranteed future value and a competitive monthly installment through Audi Financial Services. Visit audi.co.za to discover more.
MasterChef, the biggest, most loved culinary TV show on the planet, is coming to S3. This fresh, local version of MasterChef South Africa will kick up a storm on S3 for the first time in 2024. Enter on www.masterchefsa.tv and start prepping for the opportunity to win R1 million and the prestigious title of Mzansi's new MasterChef. Entries close on the 15th of March. Channel a better you, only on S3. Open up.
At SFM Radio and at Stephen Grootes on Twitter.
11 minutes after 7 the time. The Gauteng Finance MEC Jacob Mamabolo says his provincial budget comes to nearly 166 billion rand. As always with provinces, the vast majority of that money is spent on health and education. But over 2 billion rands going to the Community Safety Department will help to pay for the crime prevention wardens. The province also making a provision to pay for the 1/3 of the amount spent on the highways which were tolled under the e-toll program. Under a deal with the National Treasury, Gauteng agreed to pay 1/3 of the cost of the highways. The national government will pay the rest, even though the Gauteng province has always opposed the system. Well, the MEC for Finance in Gauteng is Jacob Mamabolo. MEC, good morning. Thanks for your time.
Good morning to you and to all the listeners, and thanks for inviting us. Thank you.
Firstly, you're spending 2 billion rand more on the Gauteng Health Department this year than you did last year. And I think even the Gauteng Health Department is probably going to say, thank you, but we need more. I imagine you'd give them more money if you could.
Yes, certainly. Let me agree with you. Let me say yes. If we had more money will do that. There are challenges in the department. Pressures, for example, if you look in the speech, we're saying this is one of the departments that's not able to pay suppliers and service providers in 30 days. We still have to work with the department to deal with that matter. The department pressures are too high. Population growth means more pressures on the health facilities. Acquiring new assets in the form of hospitals, like we have already entered into an agreement with the Nelson Mandela Children's Hospital. So from infrastructure to services and cash in the hospital, if we will provide to the health department.
Do you believe the Gauteng Health Department is managing its money properly? I mean, this has been a big problem for a very long time. There are lots of claims of waste. Some people claim corruption. We all remember what happened at what was it, the Tembisa Hospital. Do you believe Gauteng Health is managing its money properly?
Let me answer you in this way, Steve, by saying we last year, in and around November, October, we met with the MEC of Health, and we have engaged National Treasury, and of course, National Treasury has agreed to help us look into the finances of the Department of Health, and we have committed our.
All right, we're going to try and get Jacob Momawolo back on a different line. Sorry about that. Very unfortunate that that's happened. Let's see if we're just able to sort that out. He is, of course, the Gauteng MEC for Finance. Sorry about the problems that we're having there. Was asking the question, is Gauteng Health managing its money properly? And this has been one of the perennial questions around Gauteng Health for many, many years. You know, of course, there's been long-standing problems there. The MEC back with us. Now, MEC, sorry about that. I just asked you if Gauteng Health was managing its money properly.
Yes, I was saying that we've asked National Treasury to help us look into the finances of the Department of Health, and we are waiting what their analysis and assessment will be. What I would prefer to do is let's go through this process and look at the real facts. But as it appears, we needed to deeply understand that. So to some extent, I think when you look at the overall challenges, I think we can improve, and that's what we want to do. And that's why we're working with the MEC and the department to see if we can't, bring some improvements in the overall management of the cash position of the department.
The e-tolls repayment, how's that going to work? You can't make that payment in one go. You'll have to finance it?
We are faced with a choice that we are unable to meet, which is, can we pay this money upfront, 12.9 billion? It will collapse our fiscus if we were to try to do that. Hence, we opted for giving ourselves a bit of long time to pay. That's why we say in the speech we go into the market to borrow money so that we can meet the minister's immediate directive requirement that actually was made in 2022, that Gauteng must pay 12.9 billion. So we want to settle that so that on the 31st of March we could have the e-tolls sorted out. But the payment process, we want to spread it over a long time. If you look at just fiscal containment, cost cutting, poor tax base, poor economic growth, the challenges of not just in our province, but nationally, making an upfront payment of that amount will affect the people of the province. So we need to give ourselves a bit of a breathing space, and that's why we're saying we went to the market. In the province, we raised about 7 billion of our own revenue, not including the transfers from national in the form of equitable share and grants. So we believe that from our own revenue, we should be able to settle whatever loan. And it's not for the first time the province goes into borrowing. We did that for Gautrain. The loan of Gautrain will be paid fully by 2026-27 financial year. So that's why we're confident that we're meeting Minister's directive that Gauteng should start showing some bit of payment. We've penciled in that money in the financial year starting on the 1st of April this year.
I mean, Gauteng never wanted e-tolls. It's a lot to pay for something you never wanted in the first place.
Precisely that. Remember, the national policy position that was made in 2022 was that government will absorb the debt precisely because overwhelmingly the people of the province said we're not paying for the e-tolls, and even the political parties across in the legislature, key stakeholders, different organizations in the province. So since Minister made this a policy statement, it brought great relief to the people in the sense that at least it said government is absorbing the debt. So, but we have to make a contribution. I don't even think it's still a matter of whether can we or do we want to. It's a policy position. We're a unitary state. We're one government. We have to make our contribution as long as we're bringing relief to the people who have to deal with this issue every day. I think it's good news that we will bring to realization the minister's directive that government must absorb the debt, and this will bring relief to the people.
Community safety, you're spending over 2 billion rand on community safety this year. I presume a lot of that goes to the crime wardens, the crime prevention wardens. Do you expect to be paying for them permanently? Are they going to be a permanent program?
This matter was clarified by the Premier during the State of the Province address that yes, indeed, we want that capacity to be available in the province moving forward. We are very pleased that when we came in with Premier Panyaza Lesufi in 2022, October, the budget of this department was slightly below just R1 billion. And within such a short space of time, we were able, today we have increased the budget, as you see, to 2.3 billion, and we are projecting that in the MTF period, that is the next 3 years, this budget is going to grow to 7.2 billion. This is very remarkable, and you can see in the speech where we are deploying the money to. It's not only to crime prevention wardens, we're talking about supporting them with helicopters, the drones. We're putting an infrastructure that we call the Provincial Integrated Command Center, which is going to support them on the ground, make sure that their operations are well supported. So we think to this extent, and of course the partnership we're having with the private sector on CCTV cameras. So the overall approach we're taking is quite remarkable. If you look at the speech itself, we are quoting the World Bank's report known as the Economic Cost of Crime in South Africa, and that tells you its impact on the gross domestic product. So we believe that the progress we have made in increasing the budget of community safety and the issues that it is attending to or paying for is quite remarkable to reduce the rate of crime.
Jacob Mombolo, thank you. MEC for Finance in the province of Gauteng. 21 minutes after 7.
Business owners, don't waste your time searching for an employee that has it all. They do not exist. But I will tell you what does exist. The Kia K2700 Workhorse. It's versatile, powerful, and reliable. It also arrives on time every day. Plus, you get 40,000 Rand cashback. It's the business partner you've been waiting for. Visit your nearest Kia dealership for a test drive. T's and C's apply.
Kia. Movement that inspires.
Some say, Emadoda ayipheleli. Others are saying, U-X ongasoveli. Black and white, tackles, gold and black in the DSTV Premiership. This is the Soweto Derby, Mzansi's biggest football jamboree. Sazoshuba, Amapagania versus Amakhosi on Saturday, 9 March at 2:30 p.m. Live on SABC 1 and SABC radio stations. Also available on SABC Plus and SABCSport.com. Hashtag We Love It Here. Proudly brought to you by SABC Sport.
Across South Africa, online and on radio. SAFM, let's talk.
22 after 7, confirmation from Statistics South Africa yesterday that our economy just avoided a recession by the smallest of margins in the last quarter of last year. The economy growing by 0.6% in the last 3 months of the year. That means by 0.1%. In other words, overall, our economy just grew by around 0.6% last year. As you know, our population is obviously growing, which means there are fewer jobs for the larger group of young people that are coming through. Lisette de Skipper is a senior economist at the Bureau for Economic Research at the University of Stellenbosch. Lisette, good morning. Thanks for your time.
Good morning.
I know we avoided a recession, but if you look at our society, am I right to feel that really we're going nowhere? We're not going forwards. We're not growing. Our economy is going backwards.
Yes, we're going nowhere slowly, basically. If you would look at per capita GDP rate, so where you look at the population growth and how GDP has grown over the same time, that has been declining and has been declining for some years to come. We can debate, is it a recession? Isn't it a recession? Technically, it's not. But as you mentioned, growing by a mere 1.0%, we couldn't have done any forward without dipping into a recession. So our recent performance has been very weak.
How big a factor is Eskom and Transnet? I mean, if they started to work properly, would that automatically lead to growth?
Well, it would for certainly help. I think those are for sure the biggest supply constraints that we have on the economy at the moment. Somewhat interesting was the fact that electricity production actually increased in the fourth quarter because we saw somewhat less load shedding. So even just seeing less load shedding helps on electricity production, which directly impacts GDP. But the bigger impact would obviously be on confidence, investment, expansion, and improved capacity produced. So I think if those supply constraints would be magically lifted, we would definitely see much faster growth.
Our economy is obviously connected to other economies. So there's a lot of talk about whether the US is in a recession. Some countries in Europe seem to be in a recession. China's been slowing down, still targeting growth this year. How important is the rest of the world to our economy?
It is very important, and it is very important for specifically your mining and manufacturing sectors, for example. So there we have a bit of mixed news. The U.S. economy, people have been calling for a recession, I think, for more than a year. It hasn't happened. The U.S. economy remains very resilient, and even heading into this year, it's quite strong. But we don't export as much to the U.S., but it's obviously an important driver of global growth. Now, if we look at Europe, there the economies are struggling. Their biggest economy contracted, Germany, contracted for 2023 as a whole, so they performed even worse than we did. The UK did dip into a technical recession in the fourth quarter. So from Europe, where we do export to, demand is very weak. The only positive news is perhaps China. Growth is slowing, but yesterday or the day before, they did put out a fairly ambitious growth target of 5%. Now, this is the same target that they set out to achieve last year, but last year they still benefited from the zero-COVID policy in the year before. So if they want to get to 5%, you're likely going to see some stimulus being implemented, and that could help us on the export front in terms of our commodities, if we could get our commodities out of the harbors, of course.
We don't know what's going to happen in our election, but every political party is promising jobs. Lisette, is our situation something that can be fixed by policy? I mean, can we improve our economy through changing our policy? Or could politicians actually find, because of the global situation and because of our sort of economic fundamentals, our nature of our society, you can't really do anything as government?
I think the most important job for government would be to make it easier to do business in South Africa, to alleviate a lot of the additional cost pressure that comes with doing business in South Africa. Now, one would be load shedding and Transnet that we spoke about earlier. That poses a very big indirect cost on doing business in South Africa. But there's also administrative red tape. There's certain labor market regulations. So if you perhaps dial back the policy a little bit, you would actually see private sector growth, employment growth accelerating by itself.
Lisette, thank you. Lisette de Skipper, Senior Economist at the Bureau for Economic Research at the University of Stellenbosch. You're with SAFM 27 minutes after 7.
This is SAFM Sport with Zai Khan.
Zai, good morning. Wandile Duba, man of the moment, uncle of the moment too, unfortunately.
Unfortunately, yes. It's a fitness doubt for the Chiefs team, and this is after Duba. He picked up that ankle knock in last night's win over Golden Arrows. The 19-year-old, he scored the only goal against Golden Arrows on his first start for the club. It was his maiden goal for Kaizer Chiefs and the Glamour Boys' first strike of the calendar year, and Duba could be in doubt for the Soweto derby against Orlando Pirates on Saturday. In another match, AmaZulu drew their latest DStv Premiership fixture 1-1 against Morocco Swallows at the King Zwelithini Stadium as the Duba Birds held on to the end to salvage a point. The result sees Usutu remain in 10th place on the log and Swallows are 13th. Other soccer news, DStv Premiership side TS Galaxy's team bus was involved in an accident on the N4 Skumanskloof Road yesterday afternoon in which the driver of a VW Polo was killed. None of the TS Galaxy members or staff on the bus were harmed in the accident. Galaxy are set to play Mamelodi Sundowns in a DStv Premiership encounter at Mbombela Stadium tonight. Rugby news, Rassie Rasmus says the Springboks need to stay at the forefront of rugby's innovations if they are going to achieve a World Cup three-peat in 2027. Now, Rasmus was speaking after a full Springbok coaching staff met in person for the first time during a strategic session in Cape Town where they discussed their areas of expertise and aligned on the way forward for the 2024 season. The camp marked the first in-person Springbok coaches meeting following the team's World Cup triumph in France in 2023. Cricket and England batsman Johnny Bairstow says that becoming the latest member of England's 100 Test club means a hell of a lot after being joined by close family and friends this week to mark the occasion in Dharamsala, India. Bairstow is set to become the 17th Englishman to reach the prestigious milestone when the 5th Test against India starts tomorrow.
Yeah, it means a hell of a lot. I think that as a young kid, I think every young kid that sets out on a journey playing professional cricket wants to try and play 100 Test matches. And I think you look back to 2012 when I made my debut at Lords, then 12 years later, if you'd have said that you're going to be playing 100 Test matches, you'd snap your hand off for one, but also be pinching yourself as well.
And finally, tennis. The two-time Grand Slam champion Simona Halep's 4-year ban for doping has been reduced to 9 months by the Court of Arbitration for Sport. The decision means the Romanian former world number 1 Halep can return to tennis immediately. We'll bring you more of these and other stories at the top of the hour on Sunrise. I'm Zai Khan.
Zai, thanks very much indeed. Well, lots coming up in the next half an hour. We'll find out more about gas prices and Sasol. You with SFM leading the conversation. No load shedding now. Stage 2 later, 7:30.
Thanks, Stephen. A very good morning with the news headlines. Police say 4 people, 2 men and 2 women, are being questioned in connection with the disappearance of Jocelyn Smith from Saldanha on the West Coast. 5 of the 7 suspects linked to the murder of rapper Keenan aka Forbes are expected to make their second appearance for bail verification in the Durban Magistrates Court. And the UN Security Council will convene behind closed doors later on the deteriorating situation in Haiti. And those are your headlines. A full news update at 8.
SAFM, guiding you through the rush hour traffic.
Well, if you could have a morning around Gauteng highways where everything's gone wrong in the wrong places, it would be this morning. We've got a crash on the Midrand section between Samrand and Olifantsfontein. So that's heavy coming through from Brockfontein, a broken down vehicle on the M1 north after Winnie Mandela. So between Fourways and the Rivonia exit, that's where the left lane is closed. That's pushing traffic all the way back to 14th Avenue. That is heavy this morning. All the approaches, Bayes Lodia, Malabongwe and Winnie Mandela out of Fourways to try and get into the highway. Those ramps are jam-packed. There's also the matter of a breakdown on the N3 north at Heldenay. So coming out of Germiston and Albert in the N3 and N12 routes are heavily backed up. Allendale Road, you're going to be asked to queue this morning around Carstenoff Clinic if you're coming in from Tembisa side. Just be aware of that backlog. The N4 into Pretoria as well, factoring queues from Waterman Street through the N1 and down in towards the Hatfield area. Connections off the N4 onto Pretoria Street being badly backed up. Tanker fire incident from last night still causing a problem problem at Ashburton. One lane open on your way to Pietermaritzburg. A breakdown on Durban's N3 inbound. The roadworks at at Pavilion. So coming through from Paradise Valley, the M13 join onto the N3 towards Durban. All very heavy. The M7 jammed again down towards the Bluff. That's a queue from Queensborough down to Bel Air and to Wakesley. Cape Town fairly busy, particularly Marine Drive. Queues from Tableview to Racecourse Road. More queues at Lagoon Beach coming through from Woodbridge Island. And more queues through the Pardon Island there as well. 3 stopping points on Marine Drive this morning. And it's just worth noting that the R44 heading into Stellenbosch, extra busy this morning if you travel in from Somerset West, from sort of Annandale Road territory up through Jamestown and all the way into central Stellenbosch. It's a lot worse. Also, Baden-Powell queuing on your way to Stellenbosch up towards the Polka Drive, Adam Tuss Road junction. Rob Byrne, SAFM Traffic.
The business update on SAFM.
Ray Machlaka, good morning again. Asian markets, US markets, how are they looking?
Well, both markets are mostly up in the current trading session. The investor focus is still on the U.S. economy. U.S. Central Bank Chair Jerome Powell will begin his 2-day testimony from today before lawmakers about interest rates. The testimony might give clues about when interest rates might be cut in the U.S. Investors are hoping for a cut from June this year, and before the U.S. market opens later today, the U.S. futures market is up. Nasdaq, Dow Jones, and S&P futures are each up 0.2%. In Asian markets, Hong Kong's Hang Seng is up 2%. China's Shanghai Composite is up 0.2%, and Japan's Nikkei is down 0.1%. And the local market, the JSE, was down 0.5% yesterday. The shares of telecommunications and mining companies were down.
And Sasol losing that appeal in the price gouging case. I mean, they were making an absolute fortune from the sale of gas.
Indeed, Sasol will still face an investigation by the Competition Commission about its pricing of gas. Industrial gas users submitted a complaint with the Commission in 2022 accusing Sasol of excessively pricing natural piped gas in contravention of the Competition Act. In its preliminary findings, the Commission found that Sasol had been charging excessive prices to its customers for almost a decade. Sasol allegedly marked up the price of gas by up to 72%. The Commission wanted Sasol to be prosecuted and slapped with a fine, but Sasol approached the Competition Appeal Court to challenge the Commission's findings. Sasol argued that the Commission had no jurisdiction to investigate the case because energy regulator NERSA determined the price of gas. However, Sasol has now lost the appeal with the court, and the court found that the Commission actually had jurisdiction to investigate the matter.
And Sibanye swinging to a loss of 37 billion rand. That's after a big drop in metals prices.
Yes, Sibanye-Stillwater reported a financial loss of 37.4 billion rand in 2023. In 2022, Sibanye was profitable, recording a profit of 19 billion rand. And Sibanye's financial losses in 2023 underscores how the year was difficult for mining companies. Most mining companies are not profitable because the price of platinum group metals fell by more than 17% in 2023, and many of the mining companies are now forced to cut jobs.
Ray Machlaka, thank you very much indeed. Ray, of course, back with us tomorrow. More business news through the day here on SAFM. 24 minutes to 8.
Call us on 086 000 2032.
Well, lots to talk about this morning. Obviously, waiting to see what happens in eThekwini. You heard that conversation with the regional head of the South African Municipal Workers Union in eThekwini. He said that workers will go to their workplace, but he wouldn't confirm that they'll actually work. Well, that's what it seemed like to me. Maybe you heard it differently. So interesting to hear your views on that. The situation, I think, in eThekwini has been very, very difficult. Other conversations going on, of course. We're waiting to see what will happen in Ekurhuleni. Water problems in Joburg as well. You heard from Nhlantla and CJ about that. Sipho on the line from the Eastern Cape. Hi. CJ, what's happening there?
Good morning, Stephen.
Good morning, Sipho. Go for it.
Stephen, I don't know how this thing escaped the mainstream media. I am a student at Walter Sisulu University in Mthatha.
Yeah.
The Mthatha campus of Walter Sisulu has a student population of about 15,000 students.
Yeah.
And more than half of those students stay off campus and are NSFAS beneficiaries.
Yeah.
Now, those students who stay off campus as part of the arrangement with NSFAS is that the landlords must accommodate them and also transport them to and from campus. Now, on the 20th of February, it is alleged that taxi owners stormed the campus, Nelson Mandela Drive campus in Mthatha, and demanded that the landlords who transport students to and from campus must stop doing so. And if they want to transport students, they must join the local taxi association.
Sure.
Now, since that day, students who stay off campus, remember that's more than 7,500 students, have not been able to access campus, both Mthatha campuses, Nelson Mandela Drive campus, and Zamugulungisa campus. And as a result, tuition has been severely disrupted since students cannot be able to go to campus. Remember, those who stay off campus are NSFAS beneficiaries, and without being transported by their landlords, they cannot be able to go to campuses because I think the shortest distance, the cheapest taxi fare to campus is about 12 rand to and 12 rand from. That's 24 rand a day, which they can hardly afford.
Okay. So Sipho, are those people still not going to? They're still not studying then. Those students still can't actually go to the campus.
They can. Even the latest I was on campus was yesterday. Students who stay off campus have not been able to go to campus since the 20th.
Sure. All right. Sipho, thank you for bringing that to our attention. I wasn't aware of that. Anyone else know more about that? And we see this happening with taxi drivers in different places. But that's a long time for people to not be able to study. And I mean, if landlords are dropping someone off as part of the service, why not? So it's a very serious story. Sipho, thank you very much indeed for that. I know we see these problems with taxi drivers in so many areas. And I don't understand why the taxi associations believe that they can really behave like this. You know the number 086 000 2032. Voice notes coming through this morning. We spoke to the Gauteng Finance MEC earlier.
Stephen, just correct me if I'm wrong. Did I hear that the Gauteng provincial government is going to the banks to borrow money to pay SANRAL? So one government department is borrowing money from the banks to pay another government department. Mike, East London.
Mike, yes, that's my understanding. But that happens in government all the time. I mean, it happens all the time. Other voice notes on the e-tolls issue as well.
Good morning, Stephen. E-toll is ANC mess. That debt is ANC's debt. The payment that needs to be made must be made by ANC to ANC. So it's got nothing to do with residents. You cannot just wake up and go and erect e-tolls on the road that is functioning effectively, without proper consultation. They must sort their mess out. It's Thabo Manyike here.
Yeah, look, I mean, it's been a big bone of contention in the ANC too, and I remember when it came in, how angry people were. I remember it very clearly. And people in the Gauteng ANC were very angry with it. So, yeah, very interesting. Let's go to Mthatha now. Sipho, you heard that conversation earlier about the taxis in Mthatha, about the taxis at the Walter Sisulu University. Hi.
Yes, good morning. The situation, I was not aware about the
Yeah, different Sipho, obviously. Yeah. Sorry, Sipho, start again.
But But these have been coming. They started with the taxi people. They started with the ride-sharing people.
Yeah.
When some people are going to work in the mornings, they would like stop some cars that have got more than two people, more than one person. They would demand that people must not do ride-sharing to work. The passenger must like alight and to go and catch a taxi. Like they had no, somehow people would be like a pain to explain that this is a family member or something. But I mean, they
use
violence. Not tolerate that, especially if you guys are 3 or 4. Now they like just stop your car.
And they use violence, Sipho. I mean, they're not police officers. They've got no right to do it.
They do roadblocks. Right in town, police know this. They see them. They don't intervene. You find them like stopped at a busy intersection. They've got like clearly marked cars.
Yeah.
Not taxis, like private sedan cars that are clearly marked as like some kind of security or paramilitary markings with some kind of lighting. But the point is, the police know.
Yeah, and they do nothing.
Yes, what we always hear is that police people generally are involved in the taxi industry, so some police are taxi owners or something like that. I don't know whether it's involvement of ownership or it's somebody's in some other person's pocket. But it's been coming, they are just becoming unruly.
Sipho and Tata, thank you. Different Sipho on that issue. Yeah, we've been watching this for a while, and the fact is the police do seem to do nothing. And the consistent claim that we're told is that police officers are involved in owning taxis or there's some kind of financial relationship. I've not been able to verify that, but the claim comes through all the time. Your views on that? And then how do we stop it? 086 000 2032.
First in the morning, SAFM Sunrise with Stephen Grootes.
Well, you'll have heard over the years of the number of members of the Abahlali Basemjondolo movement, the shack dwellers movement, based primarily in KwaZulu-Natal. How many of their members and leaders have been shot, assassinated, really? It's a group that really tries to do what it can for shack dwellers. Obviously, in a way, it's a political movement, but certainly we've seen very few convictions for the people who have actually been killed. Now, the Human Rights Commission has said that a police task team has been established to investigate the assassination of these members. Pelile Ntuli is a commissioner at the Human Rights Commission. Commissioner, good morning. Thanks for your time.
Stephen, good morning. Good morning to your listeners. Thank you for having us.
You've been putting pressure on the police and on the president to act here. What are you expecting to happen now?
As we should, Stephen, as you say, the numbers of assassinations of members of Abahlali Basemjondolo is exponentially high. 24 members in the past 14 years have been assassinated, and investigations have not been done. As a Human Rights Commission, we did, over the years, receive complaints from both individuals as well as organizations within the country, as well as international individuals as well as organizations who are concerned at the plight of Abahlali Basemjondolo. We did, in June 2023, write to the President to seek intervention at the level of the presidency, and we have recently then received communication that this task team you have referred to has been established, which will look into and investigate the assassination.
There is a terrible relationship between Abahlali Basemjondolo and the police, from what I can see. I don't think there's trust there. Does that worry you in this case? I mean, yes, there's a task team, but I don't know if the shack dwellers believe that actually the task team will get to the bottom of it.
It is our duty and our role as the South African Human Rights Commission to intervene and to then facilitate a context and environment through which trust can be reinstated between community members as well as the South African police services. And this task team, its work is going to be monitored by the South African Human Rights Commission, and we are going to be in constant liaison and communication with not only abahlali basemjondolo, but also communities as a whole.
I hate to say it, Commissioner, but we've seen in KZN inquiries into murders before. I mean, political killings. There was a big commission there, the Morani Commission, and nothing seems to change. And I'm glad that you're doing the work that you are. I think it's very important. I just worry that despite the work that you've done, despite the promises from the President, despite the assurances from the police, and despite the hopes of the shack dwellers themselves, I hate to say this, that nothing may change.
While your position is understandable, Stephen, it doesn't assist us to be pessimistic. We have to continue to be hopeful that this task team is going to do its work. And our role as the Human Rights Commission is to learn from what has worked and what has not worked in the past, and to try to intervene to ensure that the challenges of the past do not repeat themselves in the work of this task team. And therefore, we are going to strengthen our monitoring as well as following up with the work of the task team in ensuring that we do not leave this matter until prosecutions are brought to the court.
Commissioner, thank you very much indeed. Pelilin Tuli, Commissioner at the South African Human Rights Commission. How many times have you heard us talking about the situation regarding this movement and the people, its members and leaders who've been killed? 12 minutes now to 8. We'll talk about Sasol in a moment.
Imagine a society where women and children could walk in the streets without the recurring fear of safety. Imagine a society where respect characterized our social interactions. Imagine a relationship where violence found no place. This world is possible if we unify our voices and actions in restoring the essence of our society. This International Women's Month, the GBVF Response Fund implores you to do your part towards a world free of gender-based violence and femicide. This is an SABC-supported initiative.
Get South Africa's best adventure SUV. The new Ford EverSport 2-litre auto bi-turbo 4x2, now from only $14,499 per month with no deposit. With 20-inch alloy wheels and black exterior accents. Get the new Ford EverSport at your nearest Ford dealer today. T&Cs apply.
Digital television offers clearer picture quality, more free-to-air channels or SABC radio stations, irrespective of where you are in South Africa, and much more. The gradual analog switch-off continues. It will be finished by the end of December 2024. Installation capacity has been ramped up to fast-track the installation of set-top boxes to eligible indigent households. Hashtag Chincha Ungasali. Hashtag Go Digital. For more info, send a WhatsApp message to 0600 625 458. Call 0860 736 832. Email support@centec.co.za. Web chat www.centec.co.za or Facebook Messenger @Centec Ltd.
SAFM, guiding you through the rush hour traffic.
Well, if you're driving into Pretoria this morning and you use the N4, it's been a busy week and you're going to be asked to queue this morning as well. Just sitting into very heavy traffic. This is the Emalafeni Highway from Vartamea Street through the N1 and down towards Pretoria Street. Big queues into the Hatfield area this morning. The N14 queuing on your way to Pretoria between Brockfontein and Jean Avenue. Looks like something's happened before Jean Avenue. And the N1 South heavy from Brockfontein down to Olifantsfontein. Collision scene on the highway before you get to the Olifantsfontein exit. Joburg's N1 heavy this morning from Veldsvreden Park up through Randburg towards Sunninghill. It was a broken down vehicle just after Winnie Mandela. It has been cleared, but the backlog remains substantial and will take a while to normalise. Allendale Road coming in from Tembisa and Kempton Park. Factor in some queue time around Carstenoff Clinic. That's a big delay as you head through towards the Midrand area. Durban bound from Pinetown stays heavy. A breakdown at Pavilion heavy from the M13 Paradise Valley. M7 Queensbury down to Bel Air and Wakesley. A jam-packed again. There's a lot of congestion around the roadworks in that area. Largely problems getting off the M7 and turning into Bel Air Road. Tanker fire at Ashburton early hours this morning. Still being attended to. The fire's out, but the wreckage on the side of the road. 2 lanes closed and queuing pressure from just around Linfield Park is where you'll pick up the back of that queue. Cape Town this morning. Lots of traffic all over the N7 from the N2 passing Langa up to Epping. More queues to Voortrekker Road. More queues to Bosmansdam Road. Similar sort of deal at Marine Drive as well. Queues from Tableview to Racecourse Road. Queues at Woodbridge Island. Island, and then a very heavy backlog through Pardon Island along the coast down towards the N1 highway, and very heavy getting into Stellenbosch this morning. It just seems to be an area that is increasing the delays through peak hours in the morning. The R44 heavy from Jamestown going up into Stellenbosch, and Baden-Powell Drive queuing towards the Adam Tuss Polka Dry junction as well. Rob Byrne, SAFM Traffic.
Stephen Grootes on SAFM.
8 minutes now to 8. Well, the Competition Appeals Court has ruled that Sasol cannot continue to use a pricing methodology for gas that the Competition Commission believes is price gouging. In other words, Sasol has been found to be making profits that are too high. That's price gouging. Because it's a monopoly supplier of gas, it's the only supplier of industrial gas in our market. Sasol has argued that because the energy regulator NERSA had applied a particular pricing methodology, Sasol could not be accused of price gouging. Sasol had been making a profit of 70% on natural piped gas. It wanted to almost double its prices, wanted to put them up by 90%. Baka Majenge is the Chief Legal Counsel for the Competition Commission. Baka, good morning and thank you for your time this morning.
Morning to you, Stephen, and your listeners.
You want to prosecute Sasol for its behavior here. How do you understand the ruling?
Just to clarify, Stephen, this ruling was not on the merits. It was just on the jurisdictional question, whether the competition authorities, in particular the Competition Commission, has jurisdiction to investigate excessive pricing in piped gas. You will recall, Stephen, that NERSA is the sector-specific regulator in terms of the Gas Act, and it's empowered to issue piped gas licenses as well as to set a maximum price for piped gas. So it is within that context that the question arose as to whether, in the light of that regulatory framework set out in the Gas Act, whether the competition authorities have jurisdiction to investigate and to prosecute excessive pricing in the piped gas market. Okay. So the court has ruled in favor of the commission that the commission together with NERSA have concurrent jurisdiction in the piped gas market.
Concurrent jurisdiction. I mean, you're saying that what Sasol is doing is wrong. NERSA says it can do this. What happens then? Do we have another long court case about who's right?
Indeed, Stephen. The Commission has filed a prosecution against Sasol, which is before the Competition Tribunal, as you correctly pointed out in your intro. The Commission contends that Sasol has made excessive profits of about 70%. So that matter is still going to be heard in the Competition Tribunal.
Okay. I understand that NERSA will have a point of view on this. I have to say, and I'm not someone who understands anything about the pricing of gas, but it seems utterly ludicrous that a monopoly supplier like Sasol is allowed to have a profit of 70% and they wanted to put it up still further. I mean, you must feel you have a strong case.
Yes, we have done our calculations, Stephen, and we are of the view that the profits, the excessive profits that Sasol has extracted in this market because of its monopoly position are excessive and have had, unfortunately, a detrimental impact on both domestic consumers who consume pipe gas as well as industrial users who rely on pipe gas.
It would seem to me that what's likely to happen now, and Barker, you'll have to excuse my cynicism, is that if I was Sasol, I would just go court case after appeal after argument about jurisdiction after a debate around concurrence, simply because the longer I can do this, the more money I can make, and that's to the detriment of everyone else in the country, except for Sasol.
That observation is spot on, Stephen. Even the challenge to the jurisdiction of the Commission was part of the so-called Stalingrad strategy. So we have seen that not only in competition cases, but in cases before other courts as well. Unfortunately, that the Stalingrad strategy is an unfortunate feature of prosecutions in the competition tribunal as well as before the courts.
What impact does all of this have on the rest of the gas industry? And I mean, it will have an impact on everybody in the end, but on the gas industry itself, charging prices like this must have a huge impact.
Certainly, it has had a huge impact. In fact, the complainants in this matter are the industrial gas users. So the pricing by Sasol almost has an existential implications on the survival of industrial gas users in the market. So certainly the impact is quite significant.
I presume there's no way you can fast-track any resolution to this. There'll be another process, there'll be an appeal. NERSA will have to get involved at some point. They'll probably want to defend their methodology because it's, their methodology. All of this could take a long time.
Indeed, that is correct, Stephen. But we will be requesting the competition tribunal to fast track the matter because it's quite an important matter, and as I've indicated, it has existential implications for industrial customers who rely on pipe gas. So we will be making that request to the tribunal to fast track the hearing of the matter.
Barker Majenge, thanks very much indeed. Chief Legal Counsel at the Competition Commission of South Africa. Well, I don't know if you've got a view on that. The gas industry, I'm sure, will have very strong views on what Sasol has been charging. I wonder what Sasol's argument will be if they're available to respond to that. 2 minutes now to 8.
First in the morning, SAFM Sunrise with Stephen Grootes.
All right, well, calls coming through this morning. Plenty of people talking about the situation regarding taxis. And you heard Sipho and then another Sipho calling us from the Eastern Cape about the taxi situation in that area at Walter Sisulu University. And we've seen so often how students are in a position where they just aren't able, and how people aren't in a position where people are in a position where they just aren't able to use the transport services that they want. We spoke to someone at eThekwini earlier as well. Voice notes on that this morning.
Morning, Stephen. Read the strike in Durban. It's apparently an illegal strike. So therefore, I suggest that the municipality should fire every single one of these so-and-sos and then let them reapply for their jobs and re-employ them at the lowest scale so that they have to work their way up again. Thank you, Denton, Durban.
All right, Denton, strong views on the issue in Durban. Yeah, you heard that conversation with Samu. They say their workers will go to their workspaces, would not confirm that they'll actually work. We'll talk about media and the future of media from 8:30. With SFM leading the conversation. Good morning, 8 o'clock.
Independent and impartial. This is SAFM News.
The top stories this hour: a breakthrough in the Jocelyn Smith disappearance case, and the AKA murder suspects are back in court. A very good morning to you. Police say 4 people, 2 men and 2 women, are being questioned in connection with the disappearance of Jocelyn Smith from Saldanha Bay on the west coast. The grade 1 learner went missing on the 19th of February. A massive search operation involving various police units, the Navy and community members has been underway for the past 2 weeks. Police spokesperson Novella Botelwa says arrests can be expected.
The 4 are between the ages of 26 and 34. It is envisaged, with the process being undertaken, that light will be shed as to what happened to the 6-year-old girl. With the investigation unfolding, arrests are on the cards.
5 of the 7 suspects linked to the murder of rapper Keenan aka Forbes are expected to make their second appearance for bail verification in the Durban Magistrates Court. Aka and his friend Tibello Motswane were gunned down outside a Durban restaurant in February last year. The 5 face 10 charges, including murder, attempted murder, and the illegal possession of firearms and ammunition. Legal expert Abigail Ngobeni.
And when they say they are verifying, they're checking things such as the ability of the accused persons to stand trial. They are going to check, you'll remember in the Magudumana matter, it played a very pivotal role that she jumped a lot of border gate without using a passport, and then that showed that she was a flight risk. It's amongst many things why her bail was denied. So I think they'll be verifying such kind of things. They'll also be verifying the information that the accused persons provide. Issues such as previous convictions and pending cases as well play a very important role when they apply for a bail application.
Residents of C-section at Ntozuma Township in the north of Durban have criticized the eThekwini municipality for the non-delivery of water. They are among several communities in eThekwini battling water shortages. Locals say they've been without water for more than 8 weeks. 80-year-old wheelchair-bound Nombuyiselo Brose is amongst them.
It's just a secluded area. Water is not available in this area. We can't even wash, we can't even brush our teeth. Whatever water you see here, I bought it from the stores. I'm 80 and my husband is 83. I cannot even walk. I can't even come out of the house unless someone lifts me to this wheelchair. Washing, toilets, they're stinking because we can't flush. We're just in dire need of water.
In response, eThekwini Mayor Mxolisi Kaunda says the municipality is working to restore water to the affected areas.
In the south, we are struggling with around 80%, and in the north, 70%, which was affected. This came in the middle of the work that we were doing to restore water services, especially on the northern part of the city. And we committed to the members of the public that will be able to resolve that matter by end of February. We are happy that our teams have completed all the valves that were being fixed, the air valves, but the challenge now is to ensure that there are teams who operate filling our reservoirs.
People who have been erecting structures in open land near Loria Park in Bloemfontein say it is their right to get places to live. They say some of them have been living in difficult circumstances at informal settlements for years without being allocated sites. The land occupants say they have nothing against the residents of Loria Park who have expressed concern about their safety since the invading of land began on Saturday. Police are monitoring the situation following a standoff. Some occupants of the land near Loria Park had this to say.
I'm here to get rest for my children and for me to get their houses, even if the shanty is all right, but everyone will be pleased.
We are here because we don't have place to stay. All the people who are here, they are coming here because they are looking for sites, not whether with the ANC or IFP or the EFF. We are here to come and look for a place to stay so that our kids can have shelters.
And the UN Security Council will convene behind closed doors later today on the deteriorating situation in Haiti. The latest intensification of crippling gang violence in the Caribbean country's capital, Port-au-Prince, comes after a gang leader's effort to overthrow the current prime minister, who was abroad at the time. Gangs tried to overrun the international airport with 2 mass escapes from the country's 2 biggest prisons. Spokesperson Stefan Dujarric says Secretary General Antonio Guterres is deeply concerned about the rapidly deteriorating security situation in Haiti and its impacts on civilians.
He calls for an urgent action, particularly in providing financial support for the multinational security support mission, which, as a reminder, is not a UN peacekeeping force. This force will need to address the pressing security requirements of the Haitian people and prevent the country from plunging into further chaos. He also calls on the government of Haiti and other political actors to swiftly agree to the necessary steps to advance the political process towards the restoration of democratic institutions through the holding of elections.
The top story this hour, police say 4 people, 2 men and 2 women, are being questioned in connection with the disappearance of Jocelyn Smith from Saldanha Bay on the West Coast. For SAFM News, Kimudupi Makhalemeli.
A very good morning to you in your SFM Sports Headlines. Soccer, the two coaches, Rulani Mokoena of Sundowns and TS Galaxy's Siad Ramovich, will meet face-to-face today after their public spat. And the Cape Town Cycle Tour, the world's biggest timed bike race, will take place on Sunday, the 10th of March. We'll bring you the details just before 8:30.
SAFM, guiding you through the rush hour traffic.
Still busy in the Pretoria this morning on the N4. This is the Emalathani Highway, just queuing up through Vitameyer Street towards the N1. The N1 South heading through the Centurion Midrand area, staying heavy between Brockfontein and New Road. There is a crash on the side of the highway at Olifantsfontein, which is largely backlogging traffic plus the normal volumes. The N1 North stays under pressure as well from Randburg through to Stunning Hill. An earlier breakdown after Winnie Mandela Drive has been cleared, but the traffic remains absolutely solid. Durban bound coming in from Point Town, that remains a heavy run through. The roadworks in a breakdown earlier at Pavilion Mall. It is starting to ease, but it's still very busy. And long queues between Linfield Park and Ashburton around a tanker fire incident just past the Ashburton exit. That is on your way to Pietermaritzburg. Just one lane open there at this stage. Cape Town traffic, the N2 inbound from the airport through to Hospital Bend is fairly static. The N7 has a lot of traffic from the N2 passing Langa through Epping all the way to 4 Trekker Road in the Goodwood area. And there's been a collision on the M5 a little bit earlier at Crombourne Road in the Rondebosch area. That's causing a backlog through to Kenilworth. Rob Byrne, SAFM Traffic.
SAFM Sunrise. A vivid start to your day.
8 after 8, good morning, you're with SAFM Sunrise. I'm Stephen Grootes, glad you're along with us. We'll talk the future of media and news from 8:30, an important conversation. You know the number 086 000 2032. You heard that conversation from Sipho and then backed up by another Sipho, both from the Eastern Cape, around what taxi drivers are doing in the area around Mthatha. We've got calls on that. That's next.
Call us on 086 000 2032.
Freddie on the line from Cape Town. Freddie, hi. Taxi drivers blocking motorists. Go for it.
Yes, Stephen. Morning, my friend. It's the first time in your show. Eh?
Welcome.
Yes, thank you very much. You know what is going on? I have already experienced that. Even yesterday on my way home from work, actually I work for SAPS, and then there were a roadblock where these guys, the taxi drivers, they blocked a buggy, with school kids, you see. So I think they were demanding some money from this driver, a female driver. But apart from that, what I want to say, because I work for SAPS, and I know people are saying SAPS members are doing nothing about that because they are maybe involved in taxi business, you understand? But what I want to tell people is all employees, SAPS employees, there are certain businesses that they are allowed to do, and there are certain businesses that they are not allowed to do, like being a taxi operator or a taxi owner. It's prohibited in terms of SAPS regulations and standing orders. So should they become aware of whoever who is a police member and conducting that kind of a business, being a taxi owner or being a taxi operator, they must report that immediately to the provincial commanders of that particular province. You understand?
So it's illegal, basically, is what you're telling us.
It's illegal for the police officers to be involved in a taxi business, be it directly or indirectly, Stephen. You know, people are so clever. They can register certain businesses and then start operating it from behind, It is illegal. It is illegal. That conflict with the organizations, what you call it, standing orders and instructions, you understand. So they can report those people that they are aware of, and then they will be disciplined in terms of SAPS regulations. You understand?
All right, Freddie, thank you for that. I appreciate the clarity on it, and thank you for the work you do for the SAPS, and welcome to SFM. Freddie, phoning for the first time in Cape Town. Strong contribution. I mean, there's obviously questions around whether that stops police officers from being involved in the taxi industry or not. George in KZN, hi.
Hello, Steve. I'm just want to say that I've seen a number of places where taxi operators are carrying firearms out in the open.
Oh, yes.
I know they could be registered, but there's still a law that you've got to keep your weapon concealed.
Yes.
If they're carrying AK-47s out in the public, and no one seems to worry about it.
So, George, as I understand the law, you're not allowed an AK-47, full stop, and as the policeman once said, finish and clear.
Yeah, well, they're out and about.
Sure. All right, George, thank you. Mandla in KZN, have you seen that as well?
Morning, Stephen. Morning to your listeners. Yeah, we do see from time to time people carrying guns. But my contribution mainly today was on the maybe perhaps what seemed to be a reason why they remove people from their cars when they are ferrying friends and relatives, perhaps to work and things like that. I think, Stephen, we need to be honest sometime and look and put ourselves in the shoes of the taxi owners. I'm not condoning any form of violence whatsoever, but I'm coming from a perspective of protection from unfair competition in the business, where the taxi owners are competing with ordinary people merely because they have a space in their cars. They can give someone a lift for a fee. You know, you will have people with a 7-seater, you will have people with truck drivers, for example, ferry people for a fee from point A to point B. That creates an unfair competition to the tax owners, which I think result to this resort to a situation where they now want to protect themselves from that unfair competition. So that's the angle I wanted to approach.
No, I understand that, Mandla, but I have two things to say to that, I'm afraid. And I'm sorry that I think you and I are going to disagree on this a little bit. But the first is that if they have a problem, go to the authorities, whether it's the police or the Provincial Transport Department. And secondly, if I, as Stephen Grootes, ever set up a roadblock and try to stop a minibus taxi from going through the roadblock because they were interfering with me, what do you think would happen? I mean, I wouldn't survive it, is the answer, right? So what I'm saying is, if Uber drivers blocked roads and said taxi drivers were unfair competition, what would happen? I mean, it would be World War III.
Yes, I fully agree with you on that one. That is why I was saying that I'm not condoning any form of violence or taking the law into your own hands as a taxi owner. But I wanted to indicate that there's an element, every industry, like you go to fishing industry, you can't just go anywhere in the sea and fish without a permit. You know, there are permits, there is controlled and all of that stuff. However, in transportation, in as much as there are controls and all of that, but there's this element where the taxi owners become vulnerable in the exploitation, whereby the ordinary public can ferry people for a fee on a daily basis. You find that those people are in business, are working a 4 to 8 job or 8 to 4 job, but still they make money from transporting people. That's creating the unfair competition. That's an angle I wanted to highlight, that maybe as public we can contribute also in minimizing this problem by stopping giving people a lift for a fee.
All right, Mandla, thank you. Look, I think we've heard you. I think I'll just go back to the same thing. You have to follow the law. If you have a problem, use the law. Otherwise, where are we? We're lost. Nosipo on the line from Koberg. Nosipo, hi. Are you a teacher?
Yes, I'm a teacher, Stephen.
Go for it.
Yeah, we have a problem in our township schools. There's a lot of crime. The guys just came in from the gate, straight to your classes, and demand everything you have.
Sure.
Cell phone, laptops, money, everything you have. Even to the office, they do that. It's been happening from last year, around October, November last year, and it was reported from the department. Even some of the schools from KwaZulu, they went and worked to the department offices because they were scared of going to school. It was around December that time. When we opened the schools this year, same thing happened.
Did it happen to you?
It has not happened to my school yet, but to all my neighboring schools. We are always on the alert. We lock the gate all the time. We don't have securities in our schools. We don't have caretakers in our schools. We have to do everything on our own. So if you lock the gate every time, that means whenever there's a person who wants to come to the school, a teacher must go and open the gate. When are we going to teach?
And Nosipho, you've told the Education Department about this. They must know.
We have told them numerous times. They don't do anything about it. They just said, we have heard your plight, we are working out on something, and then nothing happens.
Sure.
Sometimes they say it right to the psychologist, Dr. Swart, will come to your school and counsel you, and then nothing happens. They always do that. That time when you go to the department offices, where they work in the district offices, they have about 5 or 6 securities at the gate. If you go to the gate, you'll pass 5 or 6 securities just to go and see them. But they don't see the need to provide securities to our schools.
All right,
It's a serious problem.
Yeah, no.
Yeah, even going, like the school's supposed to break out at 2, but we are leaving the school at 1:30 when all the learners are going with the primary, the foundation phase learners. When they leave the school, we go out with them because we don't want to be left at school.
Sure, Nosipho. That's a difficult situation, right? Nosipho, thank you. I mean, I'd heard of these cases. I didn't realize it was so bad, and particularly it seems in the Gqeberha area, which is where you are. Nosipho, thank you. That's something we need to follow up on maybe for tomorrow. I think we'll ask Melissa to follow up on that story for tomorrow. Nosipho, thank you. 17 minutes after 8.
Stephen Grootes on SAFM.
Well, the arguments around the Copyright Amendment Bill now continue. It was passed by the National Assembly on Friday. It's supposed to have a provision that allows what's called fair use. Now, fair use, for example, would mean you could take a book that's been printed in book form and transfer it to Braille so that people who are blind or unsighted can read it. But authors and various people, performers, are very concerned around this. They say it's going to affect publishing and it's going to have a big impact on them. Mpuka Radinko is from the Copyright Coalition of South Africa. Mpuka, good morning. Thanks for your time.
Good morning, Stephen, and thanks for having me.
As I understand it, you believe the bill is wrong. You don't want the president to sign it. Why do you believe that?
We believe it is wrong, Stephen, because while we agree that the copyright bill needs to be updated as per the memorandum of the objects of the bill outlined at the last page of the bill, we think that what has also happened over and above important new provisions that have been brought in to bring the bill into the digital age, etc., to allow for access for the visually impaired, which we in the publishing industry have never opposed. We think that there are provisions that are very, very harmful for artists, for authors, for all creators in broadcasting, in live streaming, in television, in book publishing, and in the animation space and film. And that unless those harmful provisions are addressed, you have a situation where the creatives are expected to operate in an environment that has less copyright or copyright protection, whereas the premise of any copyright of any sector that relies on copyright is that there must be a balance between the protection of the rights of those who hold copyright and the legitimate interest of users.
Okay, so I understand all of that. This argument's been going back and forth for about 4 or 5 years. I mean, it's gone through the National Assembly now. I realize the president can change things or he can send it back. But do you really think he's going to? I mean, aren't you going to have to do what everybody else does and go to court if you really want to, if you're really worried about it?
Well, Stephen, here's what puzzles us. The president sent the bill back to Parliament with 6 reservations. To my mind, only 2 or 3 were addressed. The rest were not addressed. And therefore, what we are asking the president is to say to the president, could you humbly look at this bill that comes back to you? Because we still believe it has not addressed, for instance, the one of the reservations that says, look at fair use and have a thorough and proper consultation. Look at the copyright exceptions. They are much wider than any other country in the world. Look at the question of whether this bill complies with international treaties. We are convinced, Steve, and we're not the only ones. It is practically all the creative sectors, the artists, the authors, who understand what harmful effects this bill will have, who know that those, particularly those three, have not been addressed. And it is because, Steve, since the many, many years that you've spoken about, since 2015, what has happened is that all the stakeholders who raised concerns around this bill were listened to and completely ignored, that they were disregarded. We've always made oral submissions, written submissions, but the DTIC listened to us and ignored us. Parliament listened to us and ignored us. It was only the president who said, check whether these concerns in the bill are not breaching our country's constitution. And what we are saying is, Mr. President, these reservations that you've asked Parliament to address have not been addressed, and we are asking you to review them. If you are not allowed to send the bill back to Parliament, why not ask the Constitutional Court judges to look at it to see whether the bill still operates within the constitution of our country?
Mboka Radinko, thanks very much indeed. Spokesperson for the Copyright Coalition of SA. As I say, it's an argument that's been going on for many years. 23 minutes after 8.
First in the morning, SAFM Sunrise with Stephen Grootes.
Well, scientists from around the world are having a big meeting in the Kruger National Park to discuss the management of the savannah. In other words, how you manage an area like the Kruger National Park and all of the other parks like it in our country. Ike Parkler is the General Manager for Communications and Marketing for the Kruger National Park. Ike, good morning, and I must say this, welcome back to SAFM.
Good morning to you, Stephen. It's good to be back on SAFM, and good morning to your listeners.
Some of us have long memories, at least. What is up for discussion? You'll be talking about how to manage savannah, how to manage fire, how to manage diseases, things like that.
Well, conservation, as you know, and the management of biodiversity is these days knowledge-based. And that is why we have our colleagues who are scientists. They look at what is happening in the field. The Kruger is always a lab. We have students, scientists that come from all tertiary institutions, most tertiary institutions in the country and from all over the world, and they look at all those aspects to help the conservationists to manage better. Because at first we used to manage with sentiment, especially when it comes to large mammals. But these days, it has to be knowledge-based. You have to know why you're doing this and what the impact is going to be in the future.
You talk about things like cultural heritage, you talk about tourism. I mean, all of these things sort of work together, especially around the Kruger National Park. I mean, it's a really important resource for the country. Do you think it's a resource that is still going to be with us in, say, 100 years' time? It is over 100 years old.
So the management of the park, you remember, Stephen, that it was basically inside of the park. You know, you managed the inside, what was happening inside. And as time went on, we realized that you have to drop the fences and also manage, especially when you have communities adjacent to the park and always encroaching closer to the fence, that all of those opportunities have to now extend to outside. But the how is what our scientists are looking at, and the best practices that can be done to implement such equitably throughout the whole landscape. That is what they are going to do, and they will advise the various managers in those particular sectors who are involved in the Kruger National Park's management on how to to go on and carry out their job.
Now, the Kruger National Park's almost unique, but there are people who manage parks like it in other parts of the world. So I imagine there's a lot of well, we tried this. Oh, I'd never thought of that. Let's try this too. There's sort of practice sharing, knowledge sharing from different parts of the world here.
You'll be amazed at the many scientists that we have from around the world. Last week we hosted people from Saudi Arabia who also have their own parks that they are managing, but not as big as the Kruger National Park. But because of some of the research papers that have come out of the Kruger National Park and the Sun Park scientists, they came to observe and also to learn best practices on how to manage biodiversity. And we are very proud of that. But also when we look at the setup, one of the topics that's going to be discussed, and that's under a lot of scrutiny, is that wildlife-human conflict. And that is something that needs to be managed so that sensitively, because you have people that are outside, they look at these animals as the Kruger National animals, but we know that people travel from all over the world to come and see these animals, and therefore communities benefit. So the question is, are these Kruger National Park animals or are these South African animals?
Ike Parklap, thanks very much indeed, General Manager for Communications and Marketing at the Kruger National Park. 27 after 8.
This is SAFM Sport with Zai Khan.
Zai, good morning. I love a coach's feud.
Yes, it's spicing up things for this clash. The feud between Mamelodi Sundowns coach Rulani Mokoena and TS Galaxy's Siad Ramovich. They've become involved in a public spat. Tonight they will go against each other, their teams taking on each other in a clash at Mbombela Stadium. The opposing coaches have been at loggerheads since Galaxy sent Sundowns crashing out of the Carling Knockout Cup, and that was thanks to penalties after a 2-2 draw on the 4th of November. TS Galaxy coach Ramovich, however, has acknowledged that Sundowns is a quality side in yet another tongue-in-cheek way.
We know that Sundowns is the benchmark in our league. A lot of fantastic players, great quality up front. They can buy who they want, and we can't.
Meanwhile, Kylian Mbappe led Paris Saint-Germain to the Champions League quarterfinals, scoring both goals in a 2-1 win over Real Sociedad that kept alive the French club's hopes of winning the European title in its last season with the France forward. PSG, who have never won the Champions League, advanced 4-1 on aggregate, with Mbappe also scoring one of the goals in the 2-0 win in the first leg in Paris 3 weeks ago. Mbappe has already told Paris Saint-Germain he will not stay with the club after this season. Tennis, and the two-time Grand Slam champion Simona Halep cleared for an immediate return to tennis by sport's highest court, cutting her ban for doping on appeal. The Court of Arbitration for Sport says its judges partially upheld Halep's appeal and reduced her 4-year ban to just 9 months. It was applied retroactively and expired last July. The 3 judges decided that Halep had established on the balance of probabilities her positive test for a banned blood-boosting substance entered her body through the consumption of a contaminated supplement. Halep's lawyer, Howard Jacobs.
Yeah, so we've already filed suit against the supplement company. That's in the very early stages. And so she intends to see that through. Whether there will be anyone else or any other entities that we seek to hold to account, we don't know yet. We haven't discussed that.
On to cycling, and the Cape Town Cycle Tour, the world's biggest timed bike race, will take place on Sunday, the 10th of March. This year's edition will be the 46th. In addition to the standard 109-kilometre race, there will also be a 42-kilometre route this year, and it will offer real-time race tracking provided by Live Results Sports Splits Tracker, a tracking app which can be downloaded. And more cycling, Brandon McNulty took possession of the Paris-Nice leaders jersey, and that's the yellow jersey, after helping UAE team to victory on stage 3 of the team's time trial. The American and his teammates completed the 26.9-kilometre course in a time of 31 minutes and 23 seconds, 15 seconds faster than Jaco Alula in second place and 20 seconds ahead of EF Education Easy Post, who are in third. That's a wrap of your sport on Sunrise. We'll bring you more sport on SAFM. That's around 12:30. I'm Zai Khan.
Zai, thanks very much indeed. The future of media, that's next. You're with SAFM leading the conversation, 8:30.
Thanks, Stephen. A very good morning with the news headlines. Kimudupi Makhalemele. Police say 4 people, 2 men and 2 women, are being questioned in connection with the disappearance of Jocelyn Smith from Saldanha Bay on the west coast. 13 people are expected to appear in the Durban Magistrates Court today in connection with the ongoing municipal workers' strike. And the World Food Programme says the Israeli army has thwarted its first attempt in 2 weeks to take food aid to northern Gaza. A full news update coming up at 9.
SAFM guiding you through the rush hour traffic.
Yes, if you're on your way out of the Soweto area, moving up through Randburg towards Sunninghill, the N1 North just remains sluggish. It was a breakdown after the Winnie Mandela drive off-ramp, which blocked the left lane for a while, backed everything up, and it really has taken a while to recover. So just moving up through Bayers, through Malapongwe, through Winnie Mandela, towards Rivonia, just a really busy run this morning. The N1 South, Brakfontein to New Road is still very busy. The earlier crash that we had on that run through near Olifantsfontein has been cleared away, but it is just pressure of traffic. Now, KZN, just north of Ladysmith, this is the N11 Lyle Street, near Shepston Road. There's been an oil spillage of some sort there. So if you're on your way out of Ladysmith towards Newcastle, there is a bit of queuing pressure and maybe a deviation on and around that particular scene. Still very heavy on your way to Ashburton, heading up towards Pietermaritzburg. That's the earlier tanker fire just past the Ashburton exit. One lane open, big queues from the Linfield Park side. Cape Town this morning, the N7 very heavy, queuing up from Epping side through towards Four Trekker Road in Goodwood. Unusually busy that run through. And Marine Drive very slow. There's some roadworks at Woodbridge Island at Loxton Road, so there's a slowdown there. And then it's very heavy this morning once you get past those roadworks through Milnerton, Parton Island, all the way down towards a very busy N1 inbound towards the CBD. That section of Marine Drive also busier, a lot busier than normal. Rob Byrne, SAFM Traffic.
Mediated conversation on SAFM.
27 minutes now, the time for your mediated conversation this morning. On Monday, the Competition Commission started its media and digital platforms market inquiry. The inquiry says it aims to find out what impact digital media and companies like X, Facebook and Google have had on the media and in particular on the news media. As I understand the argument, news providers say they spend money on reporting the news. They have to comply with certain regulations when they do that. In the past, they funded this through advertising. So the textbook example would be a newspaper would carry adverts that would pay for the news. On SAFM, you hear adverts that pay for the production of, SAFM Sunrise. But now, a media company might spend money producing a news report. That news report then ends up being published as a search result on Google or Facebook. Google or Facebook place their advert next to it. In other words, the argument is that news companies spend the money producing the news, the tech companies make the profit. For the moment, as I understand it, Google and Meta have made written submissions to the inquiry. X has said it will not take part in any way. I think there is a chance that Google and Meta will make verbal submissions at some point. If they do, we'll ask them for interviews on this to hear their side of the story. So then, what is happening? What impact does it have on our media? What does it do to our society? First this morning, the chair of the South African National Editors Forum, Spoo Ngalwa, on the impact of this on the news media. Then a deeper dive in this. Professor Guy Berger is a former professor of journalism and media studies, an expert in media and internet policy issues. And finally, the impact on our society. Anton Harbour is from the Campaign for Free Expression. We start then with the chair of SANEF, Spoo Ngalwa. Spoo, good morning. Thanks for your time.
Good morning to you, Stephen, and thank you for having me.
We've seen news producers claiming they've lost money and the tech companies are making money. What do you believe is happening?
Well, that is exactly true, Stephen. That is exactly what is happening, because we spend money to produce journalism, to send the journalists out, and this content ends up on their platforms where they serve advertising. And as you would know, that most media companies are folding, they're closing down because they can no longer afford to operate, because the traditional business model where we used to sell advertising on our own is proving to be impossible, as most people are moving towards digital platforms. But what is happening with the digital platforms is that media companies are getting a pittance when we believe that these platforms should be actually paying what we regard as fair compensation. And for us, what fair compensation is, we believe that at the very least, we should be sharing rate from news content at a rate of 50-50, but we do not know how much this amount is, how much they're generating, because there is no transparency from these companies about how they are selling their content. Also, it will be beneficial to us as media companies and journalists to actually, if we had access to some of the data that they collect, that can help us, one, better promote our content, but secondly, devise ways to monetize our content. But they're not sharing any of this information. And Stephen, I just want to make the point that what we're asking for is not something that is unique. In America, a study was done that looked into what the researchers regarded as fair value for what these platforms are generating from news content. The same thing happened in Switzerland. And I think in Switzerland, the Switzerland study came out to say that as high as 40% of the revenue generated by Google in that jurisdiction actually came via news content. But obviously, these figures are being disputed by big tech companies. So what we also are asking for is that in South Africa, we need to do a similar study so that at least South African companies and South African media can be better equipped as they go into negotiations and pushing some of these big tech companies to play ball. And we do know, Stephen, that from the recent stories we read, that there seems to be a deadlock in the secret, I want to make the point, secret meetings between Google and some of the South African publishers. And we read this now through the story that was in MoneyWeb. And this deadlock is exactly to do over the issue of fair compensation, as I understand. So you see why it's important for us to have this transparency in terms of how these companies operate. Now, that is just one of the things we asked for, Stephen, but I'll hand it back to you.
Okay. I presume if things continue in this way, the companies that produce news, so let's for argument's sake give a few examples, the SABC, Prime Media, News 24, they won't be able to keep doing it, right? It will come to an end because they can't fund it anymore because they make no money from the news they produce.
Certainly, Stephen, and there is actually research and empirical evidence of that exactly. And we've seen companies just this past weekend, actually, Weekend Post printed its last edition. I understand in my old the Daily Dispatch, which I edited at some point, that also they will be closing their Saturday edition. And we've seen newspapers like, although they are not a good example, Pretoria News fold and being made part of the Star. The reality is that media companies can no longer afford to operate because that old advertising model is obviously not working. But as they migrate into digital platforms, these digital platforms as well, while you may have the hits and the clicks and the traffic, the money that we generate from programmatic advertising is too minuscule for them to be able to operate as businesses. So the danger of that is that if the measure of your traffic is the only basis at which you receive advertising or piece of the advertising, that then means that fake news sites have a better chance of surviving than sites that provide relevant news, which we actually believe is a constitutional value that every South African has a right to news. And our constitution is quite explicit about the right to freedom of expression and the media and the right to the free flow of information. And I think even the courts have also pronounced themselves quite prominently in terms of the role that the media plays in the sustenance of a democracy, and also how in the famous print media versus the Minister of Home Affairs case, the judge there even went as far as saying that the media should be seen as a public center. And that's actually how we also regard ourselves in terms of the role that we play in a society.
Are there other ways of funding news producers apart from advertising? I mean, is there any other way around this from a funding point of view?
Look, Stephen, there are a number of institutions. I mean, there are those who have paywalls, and that seems to work for some. There are those who are depend on donor funding. So there are a number of business models, right? And then there are those who are using probably a hybrid system of a print and digital. So they're using some of the print revenue to sustain the digital platform. So there's no one solution to these problems, but all of these solutions also have their own inherent problems, because we saw in the case of the New Frame that we had a publication one day which was doing good work, the following day it folded because the donor was no longer available to sustain it going forward. But also, even where you introduce a paywall, Stephen, a paywall still impedes a number of people from being able to access that news, because you need to pay for that. And in South Africa, we also have a high cost of data, and you pay for data before you pay for a paywall. So that there is a cohort of audience that is kept out because they cannot afford that. That is why we are saying in our submission, part of it is that at a primary level, news should be regarded, credible news should be regarded as not just a competition matter, but also a constitutional one, that South Africans have a right to access news, and that the platforms should actually prioritize credible news, Stephen. And one person will say, but what is credible news if you have news? Well, how we gauge credible news is any member or any organization that is subscribed to the South African, a member of the press, but also subscribes to the South African Press Code. Because if anyone belongs to any of those bodies, then they can be held accountable. Any member of the public can approach them. And that we believe, if we prioritize credible news, then you'll be able to deprioritize fake news, and that is for the betterment of our democracy and society.
Spoon Gawa, thank you. Chair of the South African National Editors Forum. 18 minutes to 9. The Time continuing your mediated conversation around the media and digital platforms market inquiry being hosted by the Competition Commission. Professor Guy Berger is a professor of journalism and media studies and an expert in media and internet policy issues. Professor Berger, good morning and thank you for your time this morning. Professor Berger, good morning. Are you with us?
Hello, good morning.
Good morning. You say the current situation is that tech companies are able to make huge amounts of money while news producers suffer, but there's also a fight, I think as you call it, for the hearts and minds of people. How do you understand what's happening here in terms of how we're now consuming media?
Well, there's actually fights across a number of fronts. The one is advertising and advertising technology and who controls the computerized automatic advertising that Spoo alluded to. But the other one is, of course, the fight for attention. And so there you've got companies that are producing quality information, as Spoongo was saying, that are adherents to codes of conduct and mechanisms to try and ensure that if there are mistakes, they get corrected in the media and so on. And then you've got these other companies that are in charge of the distribution business, namely the big tech companies. And there, more or less, anything goes. And so it's a little bit like if you offered the public unfettered access to sugar or cigarettes or booze, well, the mix ultimately wouldn't be good for the society. And so that's what happens, is that those people who are interested in producing a lot of sugar content and get it distributed on these tech platforms do that because the platforms are set up, they don't really care what kind of content they carry, as long as it's content that keeps people glued to their screens, because the longer a person is, for example, on Facebook or on TikTok, the more data that company is collecting about them and the more advertising they can sell to advertisers that's informed by who those people are and what they want. And so the business logic of big tech is not one that favors quality news content.
So we could have a situation where every single person in the planet or every single person in South Africa is an expert on cat videos, but no one understands the political situation because no one ever watches the news about politics.
Well, I think that is a scenario, but it's one that people are interested in politics. So if you go on an entertainment platform like TikTok, you actually see a lot of politics there. You see a lot of people discussing issues in the news. Now, the only reason they can discuss issues in the news there is because somebody is producing the news, and this is the challenge. I think that we've got to figure out a thing that's not a subsidy of the news producers to those doing the distribution who make money out of distribution. We've got to find some way of actually coming back, and I would say also that we need to think not just about existing news, which is important, and as Spoongo was saying, that needs to be consolidated and preserved. But actually, if you look at it, we need development. We need media development here. We're seeing media shrinkage. But if you think of, first of all, as he mentioned, Pretoria News, you've got a mega city in South Africa without a local newspaper. But think of much smaller towns. There's no local news whatsoever, especially not in people's mother tongues. And so we really need to think about what can be done to open up the market so that people are interested to invest in producing local content in local languages, and they don't face this incredible challenge of having to go through big tech that doesn't give anything back.
You mentioned the way that society deals with alcohol, cigarettes and sugar, and what government does is that it taxes them and it uses that money to deal with the consequences of drinking, smoking and eating sugar. Do we need something similar here then? I mean, would a possible policy option be to say these companies are benefiting, so as a result they must now pay a levy? That levy would then go to the production of news, would be a subsidy for news companies. I can see all sorts of arguments, particularly around where they claim to make their profits, and for some reason they claim to make their profits in Ireland when really it's South African consumers. Would something like that work? Is there a potential for it to work?
Well, I think there's a range of options, so that in that particular case, the reason why these companies were able to reach this domination of distribution is because they basically have had legal immunity in the way that your news producers don't have. So your news producers, besides for the costs of paying journalists, they also have to pay lawyers, and they have to have editors and people doing quality control. Whereas the social media companies, their argument is, well, they're not producing the content, it's coming from third parties, so they have no responsibility. In other words, if you defame somebody on social media, there are no consequences. Perhaps, well, there might be ultimately for you, but not for the company that's distributing it. And so you've got a legal situation here where basically news media have one hand tied behind their back, but the platforms have been able to reach their position of dominance without having to really pay for content moderation, content quality, and controls. And by the way, also, as many people say, there's very little redress you can get from big tech, so that if you have a problem, you think somebody's defamed you in the media, you can go to the Press Council or the Broadcast Complaints Commission of South Africa. If you have the same thing on social media, it's extremely difficult to get redress. So the point that I'm making is that basically you've got an unfair market here where some people have to carry a lot of costs because they are responsible for what's on their services, i.e. the news producers, and then you've got other people who can basically have a free reign. And so that's your first problem that needs to be addressed, that basically companies need to kind of do something to clean up their act more. Now, one of the ways that they could clean up their act is by, as happens sometimes, almost an offset. They can pay some money to others, and the companies do pay fact checkers a little bit, but they don't pay news media. And if they carried news media more prominently, and if they paid for news media, this would be an internal offset. There's also external offsets that they could pay to basically boost big programs for media and information literacy in the public at large, so that people can begin to understand that not everything on the platforms is to be believed, and to understand why it is that a lot of content on the platforms is there to deal with your heart and not your mind. It's to really keep you glued to it and to understand the political economy of these interfaces. So there's a lot that could be done. And then you come to the point also about whether they should pay tax and then what happens to that tax, which is what you alluded to. But I think that's just one of the issues. There are other ways in which the playing field can become much more healthy for everybody, not just for existing media, but also for new startups that want to go in there, and ultimately for the public that's getting most of its content through these services.
Professor Guy Berger, thank you very much indeed. As you can hear, an expert in media and internet policy issues. In a moment, Anton Harbour from the Campaign for Free Expression. Your mediated conversation on this issue will continue 10 minutes to 9.
SAFM, guiding you through the rush hour traffic.
Driving Free State area south of Bloemfontein between Edenburg and Tromsburg, about 5k south of Edenburg. There's quite a big truck crash and truck fire scene, so there will be a bit of backlogging going on that section of the N1 for probably a little while this morning. The N1 in Joburg from Randburg through to Sunninghill remains busy. Hasn't really recovered since a broken down vehicle earlier this morning. It's been cleared for probably an hour, but the traffic just remains sluggish. N1 from Old Joburg Road through to New Road stays very busy. A reminder, if you're on your way to Pietermaritzburg, we're still dealing with the truck fire incident at Ashburton. 2 lanes are closed just past the Ashburton exit, and the traffic just continues to grow back through to the Linfield Park area. Cape Town side this morning, the N7, Jake Scoville Drive, very heavy coming up from Langa through Epping, and delays all the way to the Four Trekker Road in the Goodwood area, and some very heavy traffic on Marine Drive this morning. There's roadworks near Woodbridge Island, just by Loxton Road. That's your first queue, but then it gets really heavy as you come out of Milnerton all the way through Pardon Island to join a busy N1 into town. Rob Byrne, SAFM Traffic.
Mediated conversation on SAFM.
Continue mediated conversation this morning around the media and digital platforms market inquiry being run by the Competition Commission. Anton Harbour runs the Campaign for Free Expression. Anton, good morning. Thanks for your time.
Good morning.
If we keep going on like this, what's going to happen to our society? It seems that we're allowing algorithms to decide what we see, and it becomes harder, of course, to discern fact from fiction. We see news producers really losing out. What impact is all of this going to have?
The impact will be that we get less and less journalism and more trivia and disinformation in our media, and more harmful hate speech and purposeful disinformation. So let me explain that briefly. Journalism, we know, is already in trouble in this country because we've seen newsrooms shrink and newspapers disappear, and less journalism happening because the business model, as has been said this morning, on which it was based, the advertising model, is in collapse. So we're seeing the collapse of journalism and news media in this country. What we're seeing the rise of is, as you say, algorithm-driven media, and that is hugely problematic in spreading disinformation if the right steps are not taken to prevent it. But also the algorithms are designed to encourage people to stay engaged and get more engaged, and that is done by publishing, by promoting information that tends to be shocking, that tends to be divisive, that tends to rile people up. So we find there's a tendency in the algorithms to favor the most destructive kind of content and most destructive to our social cohesion.
Do you think it would be possible to have constructive algorithms? So in other words, instead of us being made to see things that make us angry, to start see, for example, on posts that contribute to social cohesion, or a deliberate attempt by these companies to show you views that you will disagree with, or that you're likely to disagree with, but in a constructive way, to sort of break the echo chamber?
Of course, it wouldn't be very difficult. You could write the algorithms so it promotes important information, it promotes accurate information, it promotes real journalism and good journalism, it promotes important information like, for example, election education and information. There's no question that if you want to write algorithms that do that, you can, and a key factor in this dispute is that these companies are completely secretive about their algorithm. So, and even when they change their algorithm, they do it secretly. So we don't really know what they're choosing to promote and what they're choosing to demote. And I think that has major implications for our society.
The tech companies always deny that they're leading to this increased division in our society. And I mean, the United States is really the sort of example that people say, well, look, social media started to rise, division in society started to rise at the same time. The tech companies say that's not us. They say there's no causal link. Do you believe there's evidence they are responsible?
Oh, there's lots of evidence. There really is evidence that that in seeking to maximize their profits, they seek to engage the audience as much as possible. And the kind of things they favor to do that tend to be things that, for example, rile people up and get them angry and keep them engaged. And that obviously can be very harmful. I mean, I think another thing is you mentioned echo chambers. I think you could also write algorithms that were designed to give people a plurality of views, a range of views, a diversity of views, rather than constantly reinforce them by giving them what they know and what they like. In the way that traditional media did. It sought, not all of it did, but the better publications sought to give you a range and diversity of views.
There's an issue in a democracy around an informed choice. The idea is that you can't just make a decision. I mean, most voters probably do make a decision based on, this is how I feel. But that feeling is informed by your history, by what you understand, by what you know. If you can't make an informed choice, does that threaten democracy?
Of course it does. Democracy is threatened by this process in a number of ways. One of them is that we're in danger of having a less informed citizenry. So when they go to vote or they make decisions about their lives or decisions about the economy, they are not that well informed because they've relied on social media and its current algorithms. Of course, for our economy, it's absolutely critical. Businesses and business leaders and business managers need information, and you don't have that information if our journalism is on the decline. But you also, these platforms allow, if you let them, the proliferation of harmful disinformation, hate speech, and material of that sort. And that's clearly destructive to our social cohesion and our democracy. And of course, the final thing is that journalism is a critical watchdog in our society, a watchdog on those who wield power. And if our journalism is weak and underfunded and shrinking, then it doesn't play that watchdog role. And clearly that will affect our democracy fundamentally.
Journalism can almost appear to be under attack from every direction, from politicians in some places, from tech companies, sometimes maybe from its own consumers. Do you think the model of journalism is going to survive, Anton?
Yes, I do. I think we're going through a difficult period and that new business models need to emerge. I think it's necessary to balance the market so that we don't have what we're seeing at the moment, which is severe market imbalance and distortion. But, people, society and people need and will always see the value of journalism. And by that I mean the dissemination and the collection and processing of information that is accurate, that is contextualized, that is processed, that is trustworthy. There's a real social value in that, and I'm confident that over time society has and will recognize that value.
Anton Harber, thank you. From the Campaign for Free Expression, I really appreciate the time. Professor Guy Burgers, an expert in media and internet policy issues, and starting us off today, Spoon Galwa is the chair of the South African National Editors Forum. Well, that's our show for today. Kathy is next. We will see you tomorrow. From Melissa, Mdu and Paul, sons of myself, look after yourself. You're with SFM, leading the conversation. It's 9 o'clock.
Independent and impartial. This is SAFM News.
Thanks, Stephen. The top stories at 9. A breakthrough in the Jocelyn Smith disappearance, and the WFP fails to take food aid into Gaza. A very good morning to you. Police say 4 people, 2 men and 2 women, are being questioned in connection with the disappearance of Jocelyn Smith from Saldanha Bay on the west coast. The grade 1 learner went missing on the 19th of February. A massive